It's Real Talk's 90s Christmas Retrospective, and I'm your host, Al the Movie Lion. Over Christmas, Post Wrestling's John Pollock stopped by and reviewed Home Alone. New York DP Christina Dobre came by to score the Muppet's Christmas Carol. Sid the Cinema Sloth graded Jingle All the Way. And director Lakeisha Jackson made her return to talk Die Hard. I'll review their scores today, so leave a like, and for the love of God, don't forget Kevin.
Real Talk is powered by Real Digital. If you work for a brand or agency producing content, keep it real by setting up a consultation at www.realdigital.media to see how your next campaign can come in ahead of schedule and under budget.
1990 ended the year with a box office juggernaut that few saw coming, including the team who produced it. Legendary Hollywood writer-producer John Hughes teamed with director Chris Columbus to bring this wacky and tonally inconsistent holiday story to life. This is a one-note joke of writing an 8-year-old as if he were 28, then developing a plot that supports the premise, but the issue is simple. What's the point of the joke? Not every comedy needs to have a deeper message, but when said comedy is a PG family film gift-wrapped for the holidays, this line expects a bit more substance than this slapstick romp presented realistically. Not every comedy needs to have a deeper message, but when said comedy is a PG film gift-wrapped for the holidays, this line expects a bit more substance than this slapstick romp presented realistically. What a Grinch Al must be to poke holes in this holiday classic, but on Real Talk we discuss films for what they are, not what they're remembered as. I couldn't get over a giant plot hole that makes most of the film completely unnecessary, but I know I'm in the minority, as in late 1990 Home Alone brought in more than 15 times its estimated budget at the domestic box office alone. With a supporting cast that includes Catherine O'Hara, John Hurd, John Candy, and in complete turn of form, Joe Pesci, it's no surprise that the movie pulled in audiences. It's my opinion that the biggest strength of this film is its musical accompaniments, and I'll support that argument with the 2 separate Oscar nods John Williams received for his work on this picture. I got my wish from Santa this year, as post-wrestling co-founder John Pollock has come to the jungle today to help me dissect this classic. Double check the head count and pause the Polka records because the man is here. John, welcome, my friend, and Merry Christmas.
A Merry Christmas to you as well, and it is great to be here to chat about the holiday classic, Home Alone, a tale of child abandonment and attempted murder.
Those are 2 of the more notable points of the plot. I gotta ask, John, because in your world at the post office, you may or may not sort of have a reputation of being, dare I say, if there was a holiday film that was associated with John Pollock, the Home Alone franchise, at least for this Ion's ears, is heard that it's maybe something in the Pollock household that's long been appreciated. I'm curious, I assume you saw this when you were a kid. When was the first time you saw Home Alone or the Home Alones?
So this came out in 1990, and while I did not see it in the movie theater, I would have been 6 years old when this came. However, when this initially aired on pay-per-view, when you could buy movies on pay-per-view, my mom came home one day from school where she worked as a teacher, and she brought a VHS that one of her colleagues had taped, and it included the first half of the tape was Silence of the Lambs, and the second half of the tape was Home Alone. And I was told explicitly, you are to start this tape at literally the time code she had, that I could not watch Silence of the Lambs. Little did she know, I think, of like the content of Home Alone for my 7-year-old eyes at the time. But that would have been the first time. And I will say, I completely honored my mom's request. I never rewound the tape to watch Silence of the Lambs.
A little bit of a slap on the wrist maybe to whoever gave your mom that tape. I feel like that's a real tough...
I didn't quite understand the logic of taping both, but it was, here's something for your kids. Silence of the Lambs and Home Alone. I didn't know if this was like maybe some back-to-back. And I give credit to my mom, who I didn't always associate as like being quite aware of pop culture at the time, had enough know-how that Silence of the Lambs would probably not be a great watch for 7-year-old me.
If you didn't know any better, I mean, if you told me, hey, here's 2 movies, one is called Silence of the Lambs and one is called Home Alone, I totally assume Home Alone is like the adult movie that you shouldn't watch, and Silence of the Lambs kind of sounds like, oh, it might be like a, I don't know, something for kids. Like, wow, how do the lambs fall asleep? Very good. Well, maybe someday if we review Silence of the Lambs, we can have you back and you can let us know how the first half of the tape went. Although I know, like you said, you honored it. You didn't watch it. Very commendable.
To this day, I've never seen Silence of the Lambs, to be quite honest.
Wow, but maybe there was some like hypnosis that took place there. Well, it's a solid film, and I had a very similar experience. By the way, I saw this movie when I was young. I do remember seeing the sequel in theaters.
Yes.
And I will ask you. Pretty commonly seems to be understood the sequel maybe a little more well loved and well remembered than the original. Would that be a fair assessment on your side of things too?
I mean, I hold both up fairly well. I think I'll lean towards the second. I do think the backdrop of New York City lends itself a lot more rather than just the suburbs of Chicago. I think you would give that, and the utilization of Darlene Love in the second one, All Alone on Christmas, probably gives that one the edge.
In terms of the plot, for those who somehow might not be aware, the McAllisters are going to Paris for Christmas through just a little botch on the way out that morning where they're running behind. By the way, this movie takes place in a universe where you can apparently leave your house and your plane's taking off in 45 minutes and you can still get to the airport and you can still somehow make it through and get on your flight. I think that's the biggest bit of fantasy in this whole movie. The family gets on the plane. They realize halfway to Paris that they have left their youngest son at home, or one of the youngest sons. Kieran does make a cameo in this, so I think maybe Kevin McAllister, not quite the youngest, but 8-year-old Kevin McAllister left at home. And then the rest of the movie is really just the family / mom trying to get back. And of course, Kevin just sort of waiting for them to get back. But there are some bandits, some wet bandits, if you will, who decide they are going to try to rob the house. John, I'll tee you up like this. I couldn't believe when I was watching this movie that all of the sort of back and forth between Kevin and the two bandits, which is certainly what I remember the movie being the majority of, it all takes place in the last 20 minutes of the film. It is actually pretty condensed, which is, I don't know, that was not something I remembered previous to this viewing. Was that a similar takeaway when you watched it recently? And then just generally your thoughts on the story and the plot.
I think what really holds up with this film is the fact that there is very little dead time in this film. Like, everyone, I think, associates the film with like the climactic booby trapping of the house and then chaos ensuing. And we're like getting to that period. Like, that's pretty much like the back half of this 90-minute film. Is that in my mind, in my memory, this film's a lot longer than it ends up being. Like, this is clocking in at 90 minutes, and it's a pretty fast-paced 90 minutes from all the scenes of Kevin going through the conflict with the family, the awareness that they are gone, to life on his own, to uncovering that these criminals are after his house, to who's this weird dude with the shovel, and thus having a whole 180, wants his family back, and then it is Christmas Eve Mass, and then blueprints that are brought out. We literally get schematics of the house that he has sat down to tool, and then it's on to the like home improvement version of Kevin McAllister, and boom, we're just into what is like this tour de force of 25 minutes of manslaughter.
Or attempted manslaughter at the very least. If I take issue with this, that's where I take issue, in that it climaxes in this, I say absurd, but I mean that in the best way possible, because this is a comedy. I think the absurdity can exist, but it's so over the top. It is, I mean, it's played for laughs, but it is violence. I mean, it's basically like a Looney Tune cartoon come to life. What I think maybe doesn't work for me so much is that so much of the plot prior to that is grounded in a more realistic, I mean, there are silly moments, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, everything is played really straight. You know, the parents are like genuinely scared about their kid. I don't know. Am I crazy? I feel like maybe there could have been some more slapstick, or there could have been something that sort of balanced out, because to me, it just feels like it's trying to be two very, very different things. And what ends up happening is I enjoy the over-the-top physical stuff, but none of the emotional stuff really connects with me as a result.
I would say when it comes to the like stunts at the end, I would say the first one is, the whole premise is trying to convey sort of just everyday home items that can be transferred into weapons. I had a way bigger discrepancy in the second film where they have to outdo the first film,
Right.
and it just gets utterly insane in terms of like electrocutions and the skeleton of Marv. It goes so over the top that in contrast, this first one, while it's very hard to envision an 8-year-old carrying this out, these are all household items. And this is where the parent side of me does come into this, is that I watched this both with my 8-year-old and my 5-year-old. Maybe not the best parenting decision, but especially with the 5-year-old, explaining the fact that this is not stuff that we would ever try. We are not going to destroy. We are not going to place any ornaments under the entryway in through a window. For instance, there was certainly the view at the time that this film was going to cause all these children to try and murder their parents.
Of course.
It's not exactly the fallout from such a film. Let's give some children some credit.
Yeah, the early 90s Christmas pandemic of children murdering their parents with household items luckily did not come to pass, but this is obviously reaching a level of absurdity at the end that you either buy or you don't. And I think at that point it's obviously more for the kids, it's more to make kids laugh, but it obviously forces the parents to kind of have a conversation about what is real versus what is not real in there. The one plot hole I want to point out, and I don't point it out to be a Grinch, I point it out.
Let's burst it open.
So it is established when they leave, they being the family, that the phones are going to be down for a while. That I get, which makes sense why Catherine O'Hara is not calling home. But it is established very quickly that they are calling the neighbors, and we hear the phones working because the wet bandits are in one of the neighbors' houses. But also Kevin is ordering pizzas. So it was very strange to me that they knew enough to write in a line of like, hey, the phones are supposed to be down. But then they put in that scene where Kevin orders a pizza and spooks the pizza guy, which seems completely unnecessary because it's really only a setup. So when he uses the gag again later, did I miss something? Because I feel like you cut that little bit out where he orders pizza, and all of a sudden this is a much tighter plot.
That's a valid one of the phone. That's one I've never heard that one brought up, and you're right. It really is condensed to the one scene where he orders the pizza that establishes that the phones are being used outside of like the answering machine when the wet bandits are across the street. However, that scene where the pizza delivery guy is being brought, and this is Kevin playing the black and white film, Angel, whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
If we play this out, okay, first of all, this movie with a different like score, it's like The Good Son. Okay, you can make this into The Good Son with some of these scenes. If we extend this scene, the pizza delivery guy delivers the pizza, and he is of the belief that he is nearly off in like a gangland style shoot 'em up in this home, runs off to his car. How does this scene continue with the pizza delivery guy? Is he just off to his next delivery? Like, is there a call that is made? You may have just been privy to a homicide inside of this home.
There is a lot of like casual threats of gun use in this movie that are just completely, yeah, I agree. I would imagine, I mean, even Kevin's reaction when mom comes home later doesn't even mention that that there were people breaking into the house, that he had to, there's just this, I had a busy couple days. I just hung out while you were gone. And yeah, I mean, I would imagine that pizza guy, he must have had a backseat full of pies. Because, yeah, the first thing I'm doing is calling the police. The plot of this movie, I know it's difficult to poke apart because it is meant to be absurd and a little silly and just to sort of get us places. But it is a good example where it feels like a movie that was just written in scenes. Even in the sense, like, we get the everybody coming back at the end, sort of all arriving at the same point. And dad, when mom asks, like, hey, how did you guys get back? He goes, oh, we just took the flights that we originally booked that you didn't want to get on.
And we all ended up here at the exact same time.
Yeah.
This was one that stood out to me. Like, every time you watch this, there is something else. And yeah, we are greatly scrutinizing this. But Catherine O'Hara is stranded at this airport in Scranton. She is at her wit's end trying to get the last available seat on any flight. All the flights are booked, and in comes John Candy, Gus. And he just casually mentions, well, we're renting a truck. Were the trucks like in some sort of ultra limited supply that this would not have been an option of Catherine O'Hare to be able to rent a vehicle to drive from Scranton to Chicago? I was like, there's a very easy way out of this airport via a car rental that we have just established here, and gets her home.
John, I thought the exact same thing. Yeah, why one line of dialogue? She goes, "How are you guys able to get a truck? I couldn't get a car." That solves that problem. That all said, I'll get a score out of you, John. 1 out of 10. What would you give the plot of Home Alone?
I will give them a lot of credit because I do watch this with like a certain level of like scrutiny. I do think they do a fairly decent job for 1990 of, if you were to actually forget your child at home, they explain, okay, he's been placed in the attic. His boarding pass is thrown out when all the Pepsi gets knocked over. We've got the power lines out. They get that annoying neighbor as like the stand-in for Kevin during the head count. Yeah. It's like, okay, they have done their due diligence here to at least get me into a suspension of disbelief that this could actually get pulled off. And so for that, I raise this one to a 7 on the plot scale out of 10. Now, you and I think rightly so. Like, you can certainly poke holes into this, and I will give credit to the fact that in a smartphone world, this movie makes absolutely no sense. Totally. And you really have to be able to transfer yourself back to 1990 and the primitive technology that was at our disposal, where just imagine, everyone talks about like a Home Alone remake these days. It was like that. What an insane undertaking to try and pull this off in modern times.
I mean, I think if you remake a Home Alone today, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, I think you do the opposite. I think you set it in the 80s or you set it in the 70s. I think you just keep going back. The 7 is locked in. That brings us to characters and performances. Pretty iconic performance by Mr. Macaulay Culkin playing an 8-year-old Kevin. I, again, grew up in a world where Macaulay Culkin is just a household name and a movie star. I don't really remember a world pre-Macaulay Culkin. It's just sort of
this was the first like movie star that I was familiar with. Like, Macaulay Culkin is the first like actor I associate in my memory of seeing someone on in a film. Like, this is one of the earlier like non-animated films I've seen.
Is there something to the rub that Macaulay Culkin gets in this movie? I mean, he's sharing the screen with Joe Pesci. He never has a scene with John Candy, but John Candy obviously bringing in the audience. Catherine O'Hare, not as big as a star as she would become, but obviously a very established talent at this point.
I think there's some of that. I think certainly, like, I think for an 8-year-old, this is like he's just so cool in this film. You know what I mean? Like, he's not just, like, it's really this mastermind that pulls this off, but it's also like hanging in these scenes with Joe Pesci or Daniel Stern. That, like, this is a pretty incredible cast when you look at it in hindsight of like just the fact Goodfellas comes out 2 months before this film. So you've got Joe Pesci in Goodfellas and Home Alone. And I would have loved to get like the insight of Joe Pesci of signing on for this role, because you would have thought like this is so outside of his depth, like playing a cartoon villain. And he, in many ways, I think it's Joe Pesci that makes this film in so many ways.
I couldn't agree more. I think when I talked earlier about the sort of balance, the tonal balance, he gets it. He's somehow able to just be this threatening guy, mobster. That's what we know him as. Obviously at this point, he's 10 years removed from a raging bull. So again, Joe Pesci is known for being the gangster's gangster, the gritty guy. Obviously, like you said, Goodfellas right around the corner, which is totally career-defining role. But at this point, people know who Joe Pesci is, and I think he's able to come in with that sort of the aura of the gangster, the aura of the threat, but he's just always playing it as like kind of annoyed, always sort of a step behind, always trying to figure things out. I mean, there's just a comedic nature that he's able to bring to the position of the character as opposed to just necessarily the performance. And I think there's a lesson there, because by positioning him as sort of always being a step behind, but kind of being in control, that's the comedy. And then he can just kind of play it straight. Whereas you take someone like Catherine O'Hare, who's really in a difficult position because she doesn't ever get to be funny.
No, she's like the straight woman in the whole film. Like she is like who everyone plays off, whether it's Uncle Frank, whether it's even like John Hurd's character. It's like she is your June Cleaver thrown into chaos here. And yeah, totally like against type of what you would associate a Catherine O'Hare, but in many ways probably like her most famous role.
How shall I say this? The parental fear, the concern is all on her. She's the one reminding the audience, hey, this is a bad situation. Like, hey, we're supposed to be worried here. Because when we're hanging out with Kevin, he's having a pretty good time. I mean, he's asking for Santa. He's asking Santa for his family to come home, which is sweet. But for the most part, I mean, he's Bugs Bunny. Like, he's clearly holding it down. Like, he's ordering pizza, going shopping, like doing some networking in the community.
The father, he's pretty okay and relaxed about this whole situation. Like, I don't know if you've gone down like the Home Alone rabbit holes of like the theories that like this movie could have been all changed and Peter is the one behind this whole thing. He is the guy that ultimately throws out Kevin's passport. Yeah. He is nonplussed when the discovery is made about Kevin. He's like, he's like, okay, well, are we going to ruin our vacation over this? I mean, it's a couple of days.
He's like, we got 20 kids. Who cares if one goes missing? Yeah, he is.
You want to wait at the airport for 24 hours? We're going to go to the hotel. We're going to get something to eat. You know what I mean? Like, Peter's okay. It's like, I've got kids to spare. And what does this guy do for a living? Like, this is a wealthy family. What is, where is the income derived from these two?
Again, I am a lion. I do not have any offspring as of yet, let alone a dozen of them, which is kind of a cat thing. So maybe, fingers crossed, that might happen. These family members are like rotten. I mean, when this movie starts, like everybody is talking to Kevin as if he's 30 years old, is like an alcoholic, like crashed the van through the front of the house. I mean, at one point, I think his uncle calls him a disease.
Yeah, you can go one of two ways here, that this is such a close-knit family that there are no guardrails when it comes to filters around your nephews, your cousins. On the other side of things, this is an inherently toxic, extended McAllister family unit led by Uncle Frank, who's a degenerate. Like, that's kind of his role in this film. Like, here is a guy that is like, what is he doing for a living? Like, you could imagine this guy being like a bookie or somebody that is getting by through illicit means. The cousins have absolutely no hesitancy about demeaning Kevin, sending him into spiraling depression. And then the punishment is, locking this kid away. Like, this is like the horror of like Harry Potter. Like, he's confined to this, sleeping underneath the stairs. There's really no difference here between Kevin McAllister and Harry Potter. There's definitely like dark crime that runs throughout the McAllister bloodline. Like, there's no way this family is completely on the up and up. Like, there are some dark secrets.
John, 1 out of 10, what would you give the characters and performances in Home Alone?
Oh boy. I'm going to go a solid 8, and that's really off the back of Joe Pesci, who I think is fantastic. Daniel Stern doesn't get as much credit, but I think they really work well as a duo.
This is a movie that definitely leans on some visuals, both from the holiday standpoint. Again, we see this mansion that they live in, which I guess is just required when you have a dozen kids. But my goodness, I mean, I've never even stepped foot in a house that nice. If you have Netflix, there's a show, Movies We Love, I think, and then
the movies that made us.
Yes, the movies that made us. Thank you. And they do an episode on Home Alone. And although I watched it, I think last Christmas, I didn't watch it in prep for this. There's a lot of really interesting stories. And one of the most interesting stories is that they basically took over a school over the summer break, and they shot this movie. They built the interiors of the house in the gymnasium of the school. So save for these exteriors that you're seeing, most of the movie was shot inside of an elementary school. I really, again, when I was watching this time, I did start to notice from the house, against some of the other houses they're in, when they're running through O'Hare, even there's just this kind of low angle shot where you're seeing the top of O'Hare, and I'm like, maybe they just shot that in a local mall. Why go shoot in the airport if you don't have to? So I just bring that up because obviously tons of gags to talk about here, but I do think it's really interesting that it is a seamless production in the sense that you look at these exteriors and you totally buy that they're inside, when in actuality all the interiors are taking place in a closed elementary school.
Yeah, I would say beyond the climax of with all the stunts, probably the most ambitious cinematic undertaking is Kevin McAllister shoplifting the toothbrush, and then we follow him through across the ice rink through the legs of casual skaters, and the camera just from the perspective of Kevin McAllister. And by 1990 standards, I'm sure that was award winning, but you would probably have a better understanding of that than me.
Again, it's very strange. I mean, Kevin has money. That's established. I don't really know why he's stealing this toothbrush. Again, that whole sequence is very odd to me when I was watching. I was like, why make the kid a thief if he doesn't have to be? I get that he's scared of the old man and he runs away, but it was a bit strange. But to the point about the visual storytelling, yeah, there are these sort of really fun, seamless sort of action scenes, for lack of a better term, where things just sort of really pick up. Obviously, it all comes down to the last 20 minutes when we're going through this sort of, I keep using the term Looney Tunes, but this sort of Looney Tunes-esque sequence. I'll just ask you again, if you and your partner Way were doing a post-show of Home Alone, is there one spot that maybe stands out the most in terms of, which would be the cringiest, hardest spot to watch in a wrestling match if they were using all of the spots that Kevin used in this?
You know, sometimes it's the most simple stunt, but also the most like realistic that the viewer at home could at least semi-sympathize with. There is nothing to me that's going to make me cringe more than the simple foot through the nail. That is just utterly painful, that you can at least envision. Like, I will never fully comprehend what it's like to light my head on fire or take a paint can to the face. Stepping on top of a nail, I think that is one that it's an underrated stunt in particular, but one that probably elicits the most pain through osmosis of just viewing.
Totally agree with you there. I think that takes the cake for me. And again, everybody gets home at the end. Kevin, look, you hung up the stockings. Everything looks great. All I was thinking, wait until they go in the basement and they see there's like tar everywhere. Like there was.
He did a remarkable job of cleaning the main area, but you're right. Like the basement we have not seen. He misses the gold tooth, and Buzz's room is just left for the punchline at the end to close the film. There is a dark side of everyone, though, that, let's be honest, there are parts of the film in those last 20 minutes, you're kind of rooting for them to catch Kevin, are you not? Like, there is a little part of, like, will the cat catch the mouse, and what would happen? And they do tease it with you, and we learned he was going to have his fingers chewed off. We get the shovel murderer to his rescue.
A little bit of cannibalism in there for you, John, bringing it back to the Silence of the Lambs.
This film is PG by like the slightest of margins. Yeah. There is a alternate cut of this film that is there for the taking for someone creative out there.
That said, let me ask you, 1 out of 10 visual storytelling, what would you give it, John?
I feel like this should be a high ranking. I'm only going to go 6 on this one. You know, I think it is like I think some of the choreography is like it's really like well done, but like visually, like this is this closer to a James Cameron film or is this closer to a Kevin Smith film? And I go the latter on this one. So I'm gonna go 6 on visuals.
That brings us to use of sound. We've mentioned it already. This, in addition to all the other legends that are involved with this movie, Mr. John Williams, maybe the most legendary film composer of all film composers, was at the reins of this. And boy, is it a good score. And it's right out of the gate. I mean, you hear the score of this movie before you see anything. And that was also something that I didn't really remember upon this viewing. I mean, this is like almost like a classic superhero movie in that you start with this instantly recognizable theme. And I would argue that a lot of the a lot of the memorableness about this movie comes from the soundtrack.
100%.
I really think that's what stamps this as a Christmas classic, because there's a couple different scores in here and a couple different reworking of things that are unique to the movie and work really, really well.
I'm not going to say the music completely makes the film, but it is so different of a film without John Williams' score attached to it, to the point that anyone that has watched this movie, if you just play like the opening instrumental, the frantic getting ready when they've overslept, the whole sequence during the stunts, the somber music as he's missing his mother, like just all of these songs are so iconically attached to this film that I can't imagine the film without these pieces of music that are just so complement the varying tone of this film. And again, like, this could be such a different film if you don't have the right music to sort of underscore it. I think it's so key. This is going to be my highest ranking. Full 10 out of 10 on the score.
The 10 is locked in, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that what I mentioned earlier in terms of what Catherine O'Hara is tasked with, it's sort of being this like sincere emotional barometer. The music is doing that throughout the entire movie. I mean, it really does elevate this film. I think that when people watch it, they walk away from it. And I don't want to say, this sounds condescending to say they think it's better than it is, but I think with a different soundtrack, maybe without a legend like John Williams at the helm, I don't think this movie achieves what it does. The other thing I wanted to mention that I thought was a fun sort of story that I recently heard while filming the tarantula scene, when our good friend Marv, played by Daniel Stern, was a little concerned about this scene where he had to have a tarantula on his face, and he asked the tarantula wrangler, like, hey, do I need to worry? And the tarantula wrangler said, no, not at all. And then they put the bug on his face, and apparently at that point the tarantula wrangler read the script and saw that he was screaming, and he was like, hey, absolutely not. You cannot scream with a tarantula on your face or it'll freak out. So what they end up doing is the footage with the tarantula on his face and Daniel Stern screaming, it is just Daniel Stern sort of miming it. He's not making any noise at all. And then, of course, they just go back and they ADR in a scream later. But it is kind of funny to think about Daniel Stern on set filming that, just basically yawning as he has this spider crawling across his face.
Yeah, these would be the screams of one Marv Merchants.
Merchants? Okay. So Mr. Lime and Mr. Merchants.
Harry Lime and Marv Merchants.
Take that, IMDb. That must be from the novelized version, because, I didn't.
Pet tarantula. Would that be something that, 14-year-old you would maybe be given by, like, this poisonous, venomous tarantula? Sure, our teenager can get a tarantula. Yeah. And we'll leave it unattended for a trip to Paris.
It's got a lid on there. It's fine. It's totally fine. There's another movie where the kindly old man does not save them at the end, and the tarantula comes back and maybe starts to take a few chomps out of the wet bandits and ends up saving him. But then if you got to end the movie with the tarantula reconnecting with his son, that's not as fun. Anyway, I've got the use of sound locked in. That brings us to the final category of theme. Mr. John Pollock, this movie, I'm not going to lie, it seems like it should have some very obvious themes. I kind of struggled to identify what the themes were here, because initially I want to say, well, it's a movie about family. And there's certainly evidence of that. This is a movie where the family is completely separated for the whole movie by their own fault. By the time Catherine O'Hara gets back at the end, again, we learn she basically returned at the same time they would have returned anyway.
Well, I think we could go in many different directions here. I mean, there is the overarching theme of childhood trauma. There is the psychological issues that I think surround young Kevin McAllister. Like, never is it a thought of this 8-year-old that my life is in danger, my house is under threat, maybe I should call the police. No, this is I don't call 911 type of guy that decides, no, I'm going to take the law into my own hands and I'm going to eliminate these problems from Earth. I think we could certainly do a psychological study into Kevin McAllister, who I think at the very end of this This is an extremely troubled youth that knows that there is a lack of confidence in law and order, and that this essentially is the childhood version of Rambo First Blood.
I love this assessment, and I'm a little disappointed in myself because I pride myself on my ability to analyze film, and it never even occurred to me, why doesn't he call the police? Why doesn't he just ask for help? But I guess
He is more concerned. I've got one phone call, and it's for a large cheese pizza because I've only got so much time and fully under threat, and never is the police an option for Kevin McAllister. You know, he's an anti-socialist character that is not going to rely on the government at all. This was not somebody that was going to be going through the legal process of administering justice.
I completely agree. Hey, let us know in the comments who you think Kevin McAllister voted for in 2024, because I think you're onto something here, John. That there's a real psychological profile that this kid was getting laid out. Also, got to mention, hell of a shot, because we do see him at one point pick up his brother's BB gun, and he does not miss. I mean, he's not too far away from the targets, but 5 of 5, I counted him. He hits every one of those starting lineup figures, and then a spatula. Doesn't miss. So yeah, this kid's good with a weapon, doesn't call the police. The first thing he watches is this gangster movie on repeat, which is also funny to me. I'm like, I like that he's a kid and he wants to eat pizza and sundaes, ice cream sundaes, but the first movie he's putting on is this like classic gangster movie. What a layered kid. I might have to go back and amend my characters and performances. Little did I know. Yeah, everything you're saying is true. I think that this movie is just sort of a victim of the time, in that this is a time where family movies are only getting made to make money. You know, this isn't a time where they're necessarily trying to insert anything in their special. I think they knew exactly what they were doing when they were making this. So for me, it got kind of low points in the theme side of thing. But I'm curious, John, you did a wonderful job of identifying childhood trauma and things like that as a theme. What would you give it 1 out of 10?
So for the theme, I think like we can go in so many different ways. Like I don't come away with this with any kind of like wholesome message or theme that is underscored. Like, yes, your family is awful, but better closer than apart. I'm only going a 5 out of 10 on the theme. I don't think anyone is sitting down for the message that Home Alone is going to convey. It's like you're there for the fireworks, literally.
I think thematically, it's sort of the opposite of like a PSA or like a Lifetime movie. As you mentioned, you're showing this movie to your kids and then having to explain to them what not to do afterwards. This is not a movie you're putting on to like teach your kids a lesson, which again, for a holiday film, totally fine. Why not just bring everybody around the TV and have stuff you can laugh at? And I do have a total for you then, Mr. Pollack. You gave the plot is 7, the characters and performances an 8, the visual storytelling is 6, the use of sound a 10, and the themes a 5, for a total of 72 out of 100. That's like a B. That's like a solid B. You could give it a B minus, a B plus.
I think a B is a fair one. I think this has high rewatch value. Like, I don't think it's an exaggeration. This is probably the film I've rewatched the most times in my life. I'm not a film rewatcher, but I will watch this usually once a year. So you did get my one viewing in this year. I think that's where it holds up. I think by the end of this, I do feel Home Alone 2 maybe, like, it does, it takes a lot of the first one. It enhances everything. It probably lands a bit higher than the first one, but I think the first one, you're not going to be disappointed with these 90 minutes. I think that's the best I will say, is that if you have a nostalgia for this film or you're watching it for the first time, I think at the end of the 90 minutes, you'll feel that was a fun ride. Plot holes aside, why didn't he call the police?
Right. And let's face it, I think part of the fun of a family movie, and this isn't me kind of making an excuse, but you're not going to put on There Will Be Blood. You're not going to put on a movie where everybody's silent because they're so riveted. You got to put on a movie people can talk during, people can make jokes. You got to put on a movie where, Aunt Sally isn't going to be asking, wait, who is that? How did that happen? This is a movie that's really easy to follow. It might not make sense at all time, but it's always just trying to, again, spark some sort of reaction scene for scene. And I don't know that I would celebrate that in other movies, but with a family sort of holiday picture, I do think it's a little more excusable. I got to ask you, though, before I reveal my score, is it an automatic back-to-back watch? When you watch Home Alone 1, do you go right into Home Alone 2, or are they separated at all?
So I watched this one this past weekend with both my kids. My youngest son went through a spell where he watched Home Alone 1 and 2 nonstop for like 4 months a few years ago.
Wow.
So he got back into it this past weekend. We watched it, and both of them now want to watch Home Alone 2. So that's sort of an indication they are ready to dive into the second one. So that might be some viewing this weekend of Home Alone 2. So I will watch it. In terms of just sitting for a back-to-back watch, no, I need a proverbial cigarette in between the two to get from one to the other. You do need some time and space.
I can imagine. And also lock up the toolbox, John. If the little one is doing 4 months straight of watching Home Alone, you got to keep an eye on him. Okay, make sure you bring him with you everywhere you go. Don't leave him home alone.
How about this one? Before you reveal the score, okay, what is the spinoff that you would most be intrigued by? Okay, the Wet Bandits in prison after this arrest. Kate McAllister, Catherine O'Hara, underground's insider trader. John Hurd, Peter McAllister. You definitely know like the dark arts of politics, some kind of mob ties. Buzz McAllister, I think straight up a spinoff on him, or Uncle Frank the Bookie. I mean, what is the spinoff that you are spending to go see a production of?
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say you take your uncle, you take Buzz, you give them a buddy adventure that ends with them somehow ending up robbing a house over the holidays where they are being attacked by a young child. I think we take those two characters and we spin them off into a movie where they organically become their own version of the Wet Bandits. Because I'm still waiting for Buzz to get his. That guy's a jerk for no reason. And maybe his tarantula getting away is supposed to be the icing on the cake. But I think I like that one the most. Is there one that stands out to you, John? Maybe a Wet Bandit sequel is the one we're most excited for.
I think it would have to be a much darker film to put the Wet Bandits in prison and how they reemerge 2 years later as the Sticky Bandits. I think there's certainly plenty to explore with Peter McAllister, I would say. I think you could definitely go several routes here of spin-off characters when it comes to the ensemble cast.
I totally agree. What a miss. This movie has multiple sequels, and none of them are what we're talking about. We missed our spot, John. We should have been studio heads 30 years ago. We would have wrung
the Home Alone towel dry of just squeezing out every available dollar from every cast member here coming out of this 1990 thing.
My score to your 7, I gave the plot a 4. For me, everything kind of starts at a 5. I thought, again, the plot just had holes in it, but they felt a little unnecessary, so I gave it a 4. Characters and performances, we were right on. I gave it an 8 to your 8. Visual storytelling, I gave it a 7 to your 6, so just a little bit higher there. Use of sound, we were totally in agreement, 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Easily the high point of the movie. And then the themes to your 5, I gave it a 3. Again, just because I felt like I had a hard time really identifying any themes that certainly aligned with what it felt like the movie was being presented as. It definitely feels like an exercise in, oh, hey, this script will make money. Oh, hey, this cast will get people in. And it worked. It did do that. But I think thematically, as we went back to, I don't think there's a lot there. So I gave it a 3. Overall, that's a 64 to your 72, which here on Real Talk is actually a B-. So forget where your alma mater might have told you. A B- and a 64 go hand in hand here on Real Talk. So not far off. A B- to your B, a 64 to your 72. Again, this is definitely a holiday classic, but as most holiday classics go, they're a little hard to hold up against other films, you know. I'm not sure Elf, when compared to like a Citizen Kane, goes, hand in hand. But I genuinely, when I knew I was sitting down to review this, I couldn't think of anybody better to chat with about it than you, John. So I appreciate you making the time, especially on the holiday, to come all the way to the jungle and hang out with Al. I teased it earlier. I'm curious, will you maybe come back next year and we can talk Home Alone 2?
As long as you give me the Google Maps directions back into the jungle, I'm sure that we will get lost in New York together.
I love it. Absolutely. Well, John, on that note, Merry Christmas to you and all of your friends over at the post office. They've certainly been a huge help this season on Real Talk. We've had a lot of fun. Friends come through and chat all sorts of different movies. So again, until next time, keep your front doors locked and double check your head count.
Platinum Plastic isn't just a proud sponsor of Real Talk, they're also the home for all our new designs and merchandise. Follow Platinum Plastic on Redbubble to see all our A+ gear. That's Platinum Plastic on Redbubble for all your Real Talk merch.
When asked, Dad, what's a Muppet? Homer Simpson replied, a mix between a mop and a puppet. An admittedly funny description, but one that might not fully capture the unique style of production that comes with producing a Henson show. From elevated set builds to accommodate puppeteers, to camera work that captures human and Muppet performances seamlessly, to its full album of original music, The Muppet Christmas Carol is as strong a family holiday film as one can find. Like any adaptation of a story that has long been told, you must come with a fresh perspective and style to justify the retelling. And Brian Henson's feature film directorial debut is brimming with inspired ideas and a true range of looks and techniques. There are characters breaking the fourth wall and others playing their role as earnestly as Dickens himself wrote the words, but it all works because of the balance of production design, purposefully blocked frames, and charming performances. I saw this in theaters upon its original release with my parents, and it was always a holiday token in our den. When I was putting together today's show, I knew I wanted to chat this classic, but I wasn't sure with who until friend of the show, New York DP Christina Dobre, came to mind as she's a lover of all fuzzy creatures. Christina, thank you for returning to Real Talk, and I hope you'll accept this red scarf as a token of my appreciation.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be back. I always have so much fun talking.
Well, I just admitted I saw this in theaters when it came out in 1992, which I'm going to assume you probably didn't.
I was unfortunately not alive then, so no, I did not see it in theaters. So I wish I had, because this is an incredible film. And probably going to be my highest rated on the podcast so far. I don't have a long history with Muppets in general, but this is definitely one of my favorite Christmas movies ever since I was little. I can't remember when I first watched it, but I think it's one of the ones that makes me feel the most nostalgic and makes me feel the most like Christmas time. I love the values that it shares.
Yeah, I a little bit older, and my generation of Lion is sort of the benefactor of having the Muppet Babies cartoon. Which was a big staple of my childhood. So I feel like by the time, we were a little bit older, Muppet movies were kind of, I don't know, just something you were always waiting for the next one. But no doubt, this is probably easily my favorite of all the Muppet movies, and was the one that was most consistently watched in my household. So anyway.
I was just telling my partner that we should check out the Muppet universe more often, because I haven't seen all the rest of the ones. But just this podcast reminded me, like, why not? Why haven't I?
Absolutely. No, the Muppets Take Manhattan, especially as someone who I know you and your partner are quite familiar with the city, so you should definitely check.
Very relevant. Okay.
The
on the list.
Great Muppet Caper, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not botching that title. That's another top tier one. Those were directed by Jim Henson. And this movie has the distinction of being the first Muppet film directed by Brian Henson, Jim Henson's son. So there is a little bit of sort of passing of the torch. Yeah, a Nepo Muppet, if you will. No.
Yeah, that's very silly. I also heard you say that this is his directorial feature debut.
That's right, Christina. The Muppet Christmas Carol is his first directorial credit. After that, he goes on to do the TV series Dinosaurs. It looks like he did 3 episodes. The Muppet Treasure Island he then directs. After that, we have those are just some clips. The Wubbulous World of Dr. Seuss, 1 episode. I'm not familiar with that. The Muppets Tonight, which again, that's a really fun show. That was sort of a revival of their classic show from the late 90s.
That's incredible, actually, as someone that just shot a feature this year. Being his first feature and it being this excellent is really something.
When I used to be a personal assistant, when I was a personal assistant, we were working on a pilot for a show, and we were working with the Henson Company and Brian Henson. And what was interesting is that Brian Henson did not have a personal assistant. And so when my boss needed to get on meetings with Mr. Henson, I would call Brian Henson, and then inevitably, because for those who don't understand, this is again just sort of personal assistant stuff, a lot of times you call the other assistant and you're usually just hanging out, kind of making some chit chat until the people are ready to get on the phone. This particular instance, I was just making chit chat with Brian Henson. I would just talk with him, and he was always so sweet and so kind. And I always kind of gushed a little bit of like,
That's
oh,
it's really wonderful.
but yeah, he extended an invite to Al that I never took up, and I've always regretted it. Largely because again, I lived on the East Coast and was a poor personal assistant, and I could not make it out to Muppet Land on the West Coast. But yeah, I could confirm he's a really cool guy, and I probably got to talk to him like half a dozen times while we worked on that project together.
That's an incredible story. Also, very heartwarming that he was also kind and sweet and invited you there.
He was the man. All of that said, you're a vet now. You understand how it goes down on Real Talk. We get into plot first. This is, of course, an adaptation of the Christmas Carol, as it is known.
I mean, of course, like you said, I've seen a bunch of different adaptations of Charles Dickens' book, and I think this is also. I think I also watched these films before I read the actual book myself too.
Sure.
And I feel like it sticks straight to the classic plot. It hits all the main points. And also it captures the feeling and values that it's really trying to express really well. I think with the Muppets playing the characters, it also adds really heartwarming element too that kind of adds to the values it's trying to convey too. So I think it did an excellent job at conveying the plot of the original story.
Yeah, and it's amazing how, again, these are, puppets, but you like immediately can connect with them. And I think that there's something to be said for, and we can get maybe more into that in characters and performances, but just in terms of the way the story plays out, it's able to abbreviate things in kind of a humorous way, while still sort of maintaining, this strong emotional connection to the character. You said it best, it's really heartwarming, but like when Tiny Tim is coughing, you're like, oh no, Tiny Tim. So it works. It totally works. And I think a lot of that has to do, again, with Ebenezer Scrooge himself, but I'll reserve that. What I will ask you about while we're here in terms of plot, you are obviously a cinematographer. I think the film does a really good job of sort of experiencing these three journeys and in very kind of tonally different ways. And again, I feel like abbreviating it almost helps with that in many ways, because you can kind of chop it up and you just sort of flow with it a little bit better. But I'm curious, did that hinder your experience at all while you were watching it, inside of the 90 minutes? You talked about watching other versions of A Christmas Carol. Were there any notes that this wasn't able to hit on for you?
Man, that's a hard question because, of course, we can talk about more cinematography when we get to visuals. But
Sure.
I really enjoy the different types of sections that they explore. The different ghosts visually look very different, but I like that about this. I like how they explored the different tones of the characters and ghosts and the story in an original way. So no, I think it just adds to the charm of the film, the way that they decide to go through the plot. Is there anything that you didn't fully hit?
No, honestly, I mean, I think that that's what the plot is able to do by, again, I hate to keep using the word abbreviating it, but it's hard to take a great story, chop a bunch of great stuff out of it and be like, yeah, but it's still really good. But this kind of is able to do that where just in terms of story, it does kind of hit all these beats where you are able to have moments of like genuine concern while also feeling moments of warmth and joy. And obviously because it's a Muppets film, I mean, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, so I don't think there's an expectation. Yeah, I honestly asked the question from a scientific perspective to prove that, yeah, this really works, because from a plot perspective, there aren't really a lot of holes. There aren't really any things where I was like, oh, what are they doing here? All of that to say, 1 out of 10, what would you give the plot?
Well, to answer, I agree. There really wasn't anything in the film when I watched it through that made me feel like, oh, that didn't really make sense, or like that didn't really work. It all felt cohesive, and like you said, the comedic element and the charm element help kind of alleviate and probably buffer any of those aspects that I might have missed. But plot 1 out of 10, I'm going to have to give it a 10.
The 10 is locked in. I think that's there's, sometimes on these holiday episodes, you could be accused of, oh, there's a little too much holiday cheer going on. I think a very appropriate score. I don't think that there's any extra,
I am going to be quite honest with you. There's a lot of holiday films I really do not like, and I think they are cheesily and really poorly done. So I am I'm harsh critic when it comes to holiday Christmas films. There's only a few that I really like watching every year.
No, I'm so glad that you let us know that. Okay, well, good. Then we're talking about characters and performances now. This movie has, a really great human performance in the lead from one Michael Caine. A lot of great Muppet performances. My favorite is Gonzo as Charles Dickens himself, who is narrating. I laughed so hard towards the end when Rizzo asked very earnestly, "What about Tiny Tim?" And Gonzo's response is,
And Tiny Tim?
And Tiny Tim, who did not die.
Oh, isn't that swell?
I howled. So I just have to shout out Gonzo right out of the gate. But otherwise, the floor is yours. What did you think about the characters' performances?
It's incredibly difficult to be able to seamlessly blend human actors and Muppet actors together and have it all feel very seamless, and also develop empathy for these characters who are human or not. So I thought they did such an excellent job because I feel immediately connected to these Muppets and the lives that they're living. And then I also feel for Scrooge's character, Michael Caine, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I also feel for Scrooge's character, Michael Caine. I think he did an excellent job being able to act with these Muppets together. And I'm sure that they had challenging filming situations that he had to deal with Muppets speaking with him, or maybe not, and he's having to speak on a green screen. Like, I'm sure that there was all those things at play. So with that in mind, he did an excellent job, and I think his character arc was really honest. I love the Muppet characters so much. I think they make me just feel very nostalgic. I have such a appreciation for craftsmanship and real, like, hands-on work and practical props like this film does. So I'm just very grateful that they made it.
It's like a theater group. Like when they we're going to do a story, who's going to play who? You kind of get to figure out, you kind of anticipate. And everybody, I mean, in some regards, when Kermit and Piggy are always married, so there's a couple, they're probably going to get put in that role. But they really do. They get Piggy always having this sort of over it kind of attitude, a little bit of a diva, you might accuse Miss Piggy of being. But the way she just plays but in this movie it works because she's in this like lower income family. She has 4 kids. She's like, it's like you sympathize with her. And I don't know, I think that.
Yeah, I also really love the fact that they break the fourth wall too as the narrators. I think that was such a brilliant choice. I think if they were human narrators, I probably wouldn't fall in love with them as much. Okay. Maybe I just had more empathy for Muppets than I do for humans. But it is easy. Just one, they look adorable and cute. And also, I just feel for them and their story. And I really love that they were able to seamlessly fuse like human characters and Scrooge's family with the Muppet characters together. And they can all be as one, even though they're different, which is also a wonderful little value right there.
I think this was, in addition to being Brian Henson's debut to feature film, I think this was Rizzo the Rat's debut feature film. And I will say, in my household, that rat was quoted probably more than scripture during the holiday season. Like, light the lamp, not the rat was said all the time. Just in my mind, like, I can immediately envision this endless loop of Rizzo just like, he falls down the chimney and he's like running on the goose. Like, he's just like, oh, this little kid are hot. But yeah, Gonzo, Rizzo, these are my guys. And yeah, they're the ones with the breaking the fourth wall. They're so funny. They bring such a, like, even when we get to the third ghost and it's the ghost of future Christmas and he's scary. Like they're like, oh, we're getting out of here. Like, we'll see you later.
Yeah.
But
super relatable.
Yeah, but as a kid, that freaked me out. I mean, I was really scared by that, like, Grim Reaper ghost. So even having that little joke in there, I think, again, it's really crucial when you're making a movie like this and you're thinking about the intended audience, which is a range of people.
It gets really dark.
Kermit, we haven't really touched on, of course, Kermit, really holds it down. He sort of has to be the every frog in this, and again, really easy to connect with him, really easy to sort of feel for him. Even again, just conveys this confusion when Scrooge comes at the end and is sort of yelling at him for not being at work, and it's shocked how much range there is from something that can't blink and pupils don't move or dilate. It's amazing.
It is really amazing because that's when you're watching humans play these characters, you can very easily not feel connected to them. But I think Kermit did an incredible job at pulling us all in and relating to him as people who are not, billionaires all over the world right now. Yeah, I loved his character. I think he was really classic, and he was able to relate to so many people who are experiencing what he's going through.
Just think of him sitting on a log playing a banjo. But with that visual in mind, a visual that does not come from this movie, characters and performances, what would you give it 1 out of 10?
I really can't think of a reason to give it lower than a 10. Like, there's no reason in my mind to be like, I'm going to give it a 9. Let me take a point off. So I'm going to give it a 10. I think they all around sold it for me, and I was able to really feel for all of these characters.
I have to kind of tease that I'll reveal a score later, so I can't tell what mine is. And I am, by the way, I'm going to leave this tease. I'm going to find out before this episode's up what your other favorite Christmas movies are, and I might even poke you to find out some of these Christmas movies you don't like. I know that's not really your style. Christina's not a hater, but I out of general curiosity. But we'll get to that later. But again, I'm literally teasing for later in the episode. But now we're on to visual storytelling. Now we're on to the big guns here. And again, for those who aren't really, you just look at a Muppet movie, you're like, oh, there's puppets and stuff. You have to understand, every scene is built on a soundstage to accommodate puppeteers and people under the floor. When you're blocking out a scene, it's not as easy as, just walk and move over there. They're constructing scenes around, or they're constructing sets around the blocking of these scenes. And so you mentioned earlier craft, and there's just such a level of thoughtfulness that has to go into this, from storyboarding and blocking things out.
I mean, I have to give them a round of applause because it is incredible what they're able to accomplish, especially on the budget that they had. You see films that were made right now in 2025, and they would not be able to pull off what they pulled off. The incredible craftsmanship of the set designs and the production design feels real. And I love a period piece. There's just something about the 1800s that really gets to me. And it looks real, looks lived in. The city streets look the right proportions to what they should. And also the cinematography, like the camera movement and the lighting style is just gorgeous. I'm actually like, even though this is like a Muppets movie, it's beautifully shot and lit. It feels real, but like emotionally driven in many ways. And I, as a cinematographer, am taking notes in many of the shots of just how they were lit. It looks gorgeous and it feels real, where I think a lot of films these days really fall flat in making it feel emotional but still real. And the fact, like you said, the craftsmen of making these Muppets and somehow being able to shoot this all together and light it all together, but make it feel cohesive with very minimal CGI is really impressive. You already know how I feel from everything I said. I feel like really, really, really impressed. It's incredible. And like, I wish we could go back to this style of craftsmanship and practicality on set, because it's really rare to see that these days.
The budget, by the way, was $12 million. An estimated budget of $12 million. This is 1991 when they would have been making this, or maybe 92 because this was a late release. But regardless, that's not a ton of money. And I think there's proof in the pudding of you don't need these huge sprawling teams if you give the right size team the right amount of time. And again, I'm not speaking on behalf of Bright Eaton, and I'm sure they would have loved more time to make this movie, but there is a balance, and contemporary movies are victims of having a release date announced before they're even shooting. And it's so unnecessary. And there were so many great examples of films that didn't have a huge budget, took the right amount of time and skill to make. Because you can't rush this sort of process. Even down to, we didn't mention the wardrobe. The wardrobe is so great for these Muppets. And not most, but a lot of times you don't see really the Muppets wearing anything. This is a movie where every one of these Muppets has one, if not multiple costumes that they're wearing. So there is just a huge design element that goes into this. By the way, John Fenner, I believe, if I'm not saying that right, was the cinematographer. So many great, especially when things get a little darker and more twisted, the camera really starts to sort of cant and the horizons start to tilt.
Yeah. You can feel like the lighting style in the family's homes are so warm and cozy, and they feel like there's a roaring fire, and you can feel the warmth there. Contrasted to a lot of the Scrooge's space is like his office and his house are just dark. I will shout out like that opening sequence too to the film.
Thank you.
So excellently done. Yeah, because it really brings you into the village so beautifully, and you have shots from overhead and below of the Muppets, and you're like, how did they make this shot with the Muppets? I can't see anyone like operating the Muppets at all in this shot, but
Right.
it still like feels really cohesive and real. Like the Muppets feel real. The sets feel real in that sequence, and you're like, wow, like look at this little village. I want to live there.
In the film ends on the same shot, but it's this helicopter shot, but it's miniatures, obviously of all these little buildings that they've built. And it's just, again, it's incredible to think of, again, probably half a dozen people just spending a month or two just building this little village that gets used in these shots that bookend the movies. But I'm so glad you brought that up, because I did forget about it, and that's one of my favorite things. Because I know they're miniatures, and but I'm always looking and squinting and trying to see, but it looks so real. Like it really does. Like the scaling. There's just little quirky, again, architectural distinctions that automatically kind of let you know that this is a Muppet movie, that it's sort of this cartoonish world where things are just a little bit off and different.
It's a great example of how far practical props and sets can go, and just using just a little CGI to just elevate it instead of the other way around.
Oh, totally agree. Even down to, I kept looking at, there's not a lot, but like any use of fire. Like there's a couple fireplaces, there's a couple like practical candles, and I have to assume you're not using real fire when you have a bunch of puppets, like, because you don't, that could go wrong in a real hurry. So some of the fireplaces in particular, I really looked at, and again, you could tell that it's probably some sort of cloth or something in there, but it's lit in just kind of hot enough where you're like, oh, I can't really tell what that is, but
Right.
yeah, I don't know. It's such a cool looking movie, and one of the reasons, again, it's my favorite Muppet film, because it's really ambitious and all the stuff that it's getting into. I'm curious, 1 out of 10, what is Christina? I think I might know, but
I think you might know. It's pretty obvious. I'm gonna have to go on the 10 here.
the 10 is locked in. The ghost of Grading Future. Let me know that might be the one. So, but again, a well-deserved 10. That, of course, brings us to use of sound. This movie has a few, I don't know, would you call them needle drops? Would you call them bops? I mean, it's got some good ones in here. What are your thoughts on just the soundtrack? Because it not to ask you a question and then step on it, but it is interesting. You don't always get classic literature turned into a musical, which I think is an interesting distinction to make here. So I don't know, your thoughts on the soundtrack.
Everyone has their own thoughts on musicals, but I love them myself. So maybe I am biased, but I thought that they just made everything feel even more cozier and heartwarming. And I loved the ensemble cast of the Muppets all coming together to sing these songs together for us, to us sometimes.
It's hard for me to rattle off a bunch of like songs from the Muppet Pantheon that I'm walking around humming or anything. I do think of, like I said, Kermit's the Frog singing about, being green. That's probably the number one. The Muppet Baby theme song, again, has a soft spot in my heart. So I think this movie, for me, the music really works, but even if we're just looking at it just as a musical, I'm not walking away from it probably singing any songs. I might not be humming anything as opposed to other musicals where I'm like, oh man, like Chicago is one of my favorite movies. I love Chicago. I love that soundtrack. Hairspray has a really great soundtrack that's really easy to listen to, and many, many others. Um, Christina's like, she was like, I will not hear it. This
I'm gonna go.
no one speaks ill of a Muppet.
No. That's a really good point that you made, because now that you said that, I don't feel like when I think of the Muppets Christmas Carol, it being like a standoff musical, because when I think of musicals often, and a lot of the ones I've seen recently, it's like song, 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 and you're going away being like, whoa, I can really remember that entire song and I'm going to sing it too. So that for this film, it did feel like they weren't maybe meant to be that way. And I really actually liked that it wasn't like, here's a song and then 1 second goes by and here's another song. Because that is one critique I do have of musicals, because I want to live with the characters a little bit more. They do let us live with them a little bit more. But yes, to your point, none of them really make me like really walk away. Like they're catchy and they're fun when I'm watching them. They don't make me cringe, which is great.
Yeah, very important.
Right. They make me like, oh, they're so cute.
No, totally. And I look, I think it's a good point that you make. It is very well paced. Like I think there's just the right amount of music, and I think that the music really works well. So yeah, like I said, if I have any criticism of the film, that's probably honestly my only real criticism, is that yeah, like I said, I don't know. I'm not singing every year at Christmas. I'm not like singing an original song from this movie, which is weird because I watch this movie every year at Christmas and have been doing so for, 33 years now. So it's, hey, shout out to 33, big 33, Christmas, Jesus' birthday. Anyway, sorry. And maybe it's worth mentioning too. I mean, of all the, categories to bring it up in, the Muppets are voices. They're kind of this voiceover work. I know it's performances, but I think that really aids to the sound.
Yeah.
And again, the ability to absorb these moments. Obviously, a lot to do with the characters and performances. But if we're talking sound, especially when they're singing, it's one thing to create Kermit the Frog here, but it's another thing to then be able to sing a song and hit notes. Well, let me ask you then, 1 out of 10. Again, I think I might know what the score is, but before I type it in, as Kermit teaches us, I have to be a good accountant. I have to double check with you. What do you give it?
This is a difficult one because I actually really like the use of song in this film. It wasn't like overly done. It was very understated, which was really nice. And I think the Muppets singing makes sense to me. But I do understand that this is not something I'd go listen to with an orchestra. Maybe it really wouldn't have worked if they really tried to go hard and made a song from Dune and put it in the Muppets Christmas Carol, So it's tough for me to decide. But because of how incredible also the voiceover work is and how many characters they have in this film that are not human and they still feel different and lived in, I'm going to have to give it a 10. I almost gave it a 9.5. But I actually really like what they did here.
That brings us to themes. As always, I note a few themes. Not that it was really hard to go digging for these. But the joy of generosity, I think, is sort of a great theme that the movie ends on. Mortality is obviously a theme that it explores, and the poison of loneliness and how isolating yourself, and the term echo chamber gets used a lot these days. But you could very easily say that Scrooge is sort of in his own echo chamber of loneliness and a lack of fulfillment, and that generosity that's sort of inserted via his perspective on mortality really is what causes this 180. I'm curious, maybe any other themes that you noted, as well as, I don't know, how those themes resonated with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the themes here in this film are more prevalent and important than ever for us right now, where we're living. Like 30 years later, people are feeling even more lonely than they've ever felt. So I think it's an excellent film for people to watch, especially these days, to realize how important community is for our joy and love and fulfillment in our lives, and how easy it is for us to be pulled apart by money and selfishness and greed, and the materialism that we're really living in right now, especially on social media and comparing ourselves to others, how important it is to have community. So I love everything that they share in this film. And I think it's beautiful that we have all different types of Muppets of all different characters and sizes and looks coming together. I think that's also really important theme that they're trying to get across here, that we can all be together in one community and love each other and support each other, and that it's important to give back to your community and be generous and be humble no matter where you are in life.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's so eloquently put.
And I think there's a few people in my life that I would love to send a few ghosts to have them wake up a little bit more. I wish that we had that power, but I hope that everyone can really see that and come together. And I think there is a big wave of people feeling like, hey, we're all so lonely because we're not part of a community. What does it mean to be part of a community? I think that is changing, and that is what I'm hopeful for.
Well, I just want to jump in because I think that is such an important thing, wanting to feel part of a community. And if we're talking about the holidays and giving gifts, one of the greatest gifts you can give someone is acknowledging them. And it isn't said enough, but so many people don't feel like they're a part of a community because they don't feel seen and they don't feel heard. And they're not necessarily wrong. And oftentimes it's just a text message. It could be a comment. It could be a like or a subscribe. No, I'm kidding. But it could, it could be something very small that you do for people that you care about or maybe haven't talked to in a while. And it makes such a huge difference. And this movie, again, does showcase that kindness can be a grand gesture of your boss showing up and paying off your mortgage on Christmas. But that's probably only going to be inspired by a person who could very easily complain about that guy defending him and being thankful for what he's given them. And there's something really to that. And so anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. I think that's such a great point you make about community and how important it is. And such a big part of community is acknowledging each other. And I don't know.
Being there for each other when you really, really need it, even if it's not convenient.
And that's oftentimes when it's most necessary.
Yeah.
Is when it's least convenient. But all that said, 1 out of 10 themes, I think I know. But
I am all hearts to the sky with a solid 10 here. I think that we all should be watching this movie and really taking it to heart.
I really, really love this movie. You clearly love this movie as well.
This movie, I mean, it has everything. Period piece, beautiful cinematography, such a warming theme for us all to really resonate with in these trying times. So, and it's very cozy. It's a very easy watch as well.
Yeah, we say all the time, oh, a movie grows with you. And I wouldn't necessarily say, it feels weird to say that about this, but because it is a classic, the story is proven. So it's like, again, I watched this as a kid in 92. I watched this as an adult now. And there's just different things that I like about it, but I still very much enjoy it. And when Gonzo says,
And Tiny Tim, who did not die.
I laugh so hard at that. Like, it's been a minute since I've laughed that hard. I totally forgot that he just... Anyway,
It's really funny.
Really have to reveal your score. You gave it a 100, which is great. I love it. It's the Christmas time of year, and it definitely deserves that. Before I reveal my score, though, I want to know, you mentioned a couple other movies that you do like. We're not going to talk about movies that you hate, but I do want to know a couple of the other Christmas movies that you like in addition to this.
So to wrap up my thoughts, I absolutely love this movie. And especially as an adult, you made a really great point. Now that I'm an adult and I watch it, I feel like it resonates even more as someone that has to go out to the world. And I see how hard the world is and how horrible people can be. I think when you're younger, you have this rose-colored glasses view of what the world is like. And you can be very naive. But now that I'm an adult, I can really see that and see the importance of having humility and loving your community. So big love for this movie. Go out and watch it. And to answer your question, a few of my favorite movies for Christmas are definitely How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
The animated or
that
Jim Carrey?
is Jim Carrey, of course.
Okay.
I love a big production design set. I am a lover of a huge production design set and costumes and crazy kind of surreal, not of this world settings. So that is one of my favorites. I think it's also hilarious and silly and fun and has a very heartwarming theme at the end. And a big one that I also love is Last Holiday with Queen Latifah. Have you ever seen that one?
I have not, but I am
That
very
one's a good one.
okay.
That one, I don't want to spoil it for you. You have to go
All right.
watch.
Well, next year we'll plug it
Yeah.
in because we have Al really plans things out in advance. So people, believe it or not, I actually have every episode of Real Talk plugged in for all of 2026. And there is one movie left for the holiday special next year. So maybe I'll
Throw it in.
slide the holiday in. It might be a little too early to ask you if you can come back in 1 year from now, but there's a soft hole for you to
Okay.
come back and review the holiday. No, I love it. And it's funny, I want to throw this in there because as somebody who is much as a fan of cinema, also a big fan of film criticism. I've always grown up loving At the Movies, and The Grinch was a movie that was like notoriously, I don't want to say hated by critics at the time, but critics in all of their reviews kept talking about how scary it was going to be for kids. I don't know any kids who were scared of this movie. Like, I don't know exactly how old I was when I came out, but I know so many people who grew up loving this movie, and I've always noticed as a critic, never complain about a movie from the perspective of a child unless you really feel that thing because I don't know, I might enjoy the production design and really like that movie, but it's an interesting thing that again this is the Who's are too scary, kids are going to be afraid of that. They said the same thing about Jurassic Park. I love Jurassic Park. I was never scared as a kid. I saw that when I was like 6 years old and I was so into it. Yeah, anyway,
I was never scared of those films. I thought that they were quirky and goofy, and there was some like, whoa, like there's some like shots that I'm like, ooh, he's kind of creepy, but
right.
that's what you're supposed to feel like a little bit. And everything is not reality. It's literally the Grinch. So yeah, I love that one.
Well, amazing. I have to reveal my score before I forget. I gave the plot to your 10. I gave it a 9, only because, again, based on a Charles Dickens book, 9, not bad. Characters and performances to your 10, I gave it a 10. Visual storytelling to your 10, I gave it a 10. Use of sound, I did give it a 9, based on what I said earlier. And theme, sort of similarly, I gave it a 9 out of 10, just because, again, it is based on pre-existing material. And like I said, I think a movie to really get a 10 out of 10 in theme sort of has to be an example of what it is. And so, like, if on the set of the Muppet Christmas Carol, like an orphan mortgage was paid, then maybe this would be as set up as a theme, but it's kind of hard to do when you're, adapting a story that exists. So I gave it a 9. All to say, 94 out of 100, a year 100. Our average was 97, so this is officially right up there with one of the top. In fact, let me look. Malcolm X, ladies and gentlemen, is sitting at the top with 97. So we just tied Malcolm X with the Muppet Christmas Carol. So there is some Christmas cheer for everyone. Christina, I feel like I already soft booked you for next year, so I don't have to ask if you'll come back. But as always, I'm so glad that you came through the jungle, especially for our Christmas special. I feel very fortunate to be friends with your partner who you mentioned earlier. So I hope you both have a lovely holiday and a happy year.
Well, thank you so much. It's always a privilege being on this show. I never get to talk about movies. And also this movie, I feel like we should all be talking about this movie more. So I'm grateful that we could talk about it together and share a love for practical sets, set design, beautiful films. Love in films. Let's put more love in films.
Couldn't agree more. Go to the movies, buy DVDs. People think DVDs are dead. They're not. I just ordered the Begonia DVD last night, guys. The Blu-ray, it's awesome. There's 5 different versions of this movie you can get on DVD and Blu-ray.
What?
Oh, yeah, I'll send you the link in a
I
minute.
didn't even know that. I love DVDs. I usually thrift them at the thrift store, but I just realized that how am I going to be able to get the new films I love? So
Yeah,
get out there and order them myself.
a lot of the big retailers like a Best Buy, which I don't frequent, not anything against Best Buy, there's not one around me, so I don't go in them often. But I don't know what they carry, if they carry anything. But I do know most films, especially if you go to the site of whoever produced it, which is the case with Begonia. I think it's Paramount off the top of my head. I could be wrong. Sorry, Begonia, if I am. But yeah, like I said, there's 5 different versions. The most, I think it's maybe like $60. There's like the Ultra. You get the Blu-ray, you get a DVD, you get I think there's even like a little book that it comes with. It had like a cool case, and they all come with digital downloads now too, which is really cool. So if you buy the DVD, you can very easily. So I just say all that because again, we're all about cinema here. We want people putting their money back into the movies. But enough about all that. Again, Christina, I'm so glad that you could come through. And I'll say this to the listeners. If you enjoyed today's episode, you should really read the book.
Boom.
Before we jump into the next review, I just wanted to thank you for listening this far, and I ask that you leave a like if you're enjoying the show. And let us know what movies you'd like to hear us score on Real Talk. We're almost certainly on your favorite social media platform, so search Al the Movie Lion wherever you scroll.
To some, maybe a vocal few, Jingle All the Way is considered a classic because it's a staple of their holiday movie cycle, but on Real Talk, we don't let a little nostalgia get in the way of seeing a picture for what it is. And you're unlikely to find a 90s Christmas movie that's as overbranded as this celebration of commercializing a holiday. For those already thinking, The Lion missed the point, Jingle All the Way is a satire, not glorification. I'm afraid you're missing some key evidence. The film's villain is a neighbor whose only flaw is loving the hero's wife as much as he does, and said wife does nothing to shut down any of his advances. Like all journeys a hero goes on, there's an object of desire that drives the plot. But what Jingle All the Way lacks is anything resembling heart to reward the hero when he completes his adventure. Because in this story, Excalibur is satisfying a child who is completely spoiled. When adjusting for inflation, the $60 million budget would be well over $123 million today. So it's not difficult to speculate why this star sled got made, but unfortunately the filmmaker's work ages like counterfeit Turbo Man dolls. Maybe there's something I'm missing about the lame gag and objectively dumb plot, so I've called in Sid the Cinema Sloth, who is a lover of Christmas, toys, and a good old action movie star. So let's hear what he thought. Sid, Merry Christmas, and can I get you a little eggnog, my man?
Merry Christmas. I would love some eggnog. Do you have a straw?
Oh, of course, Sid. We would never.
I can't drink it without a straw.
I know you're hanging there. You got a claw. Don't worry, we got one of those curly straws, so you don't even have to move.
I didn't want to ask, but
no, you kidding?
That's what I was hoping for.
Well, look, this isn't your first time. We know how to accommodate a Sid. We love it, by the way. We love when you're on the show. Thank you for coming back. And Merry Christmas. It's the holidays.
Yeah.
You made it here.
I'm here, and I'm relaxed, and I'm gonna unbuckle one of my belt loops. My belt notches. That's how comfortable I'm gonna get.
Well, hey, spoiler, that eggnog's got a little something in it. So you start on your bill. Let's just see where the Jingle All the Way might be something completely different by the end of this. That's a transition that you'll get out of me at this point. Now, I happen to know, a little bit of a spoiler, this is your first time seeing the movie for the show. When you were watching it, did you realize, I've seen this in the past, or am I correct? This is your first time seeing this movie.
Well, yeah, this was my first time seeing it. Probably my last. It was Jingle All the Way. It was I get it, sure. Do whatever you can, hurt as many people as you can to get it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a standard amount of violence for an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. There's an exceeding amount of violence for a holiday picture. Yeah. People are just, by any means necessary, is the attitude in this movie.
Oh my God, yeah.
We'll get more into that, but because there's no great epic when I saw this movie for the first time story, Sid, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Is there one toy that stands out when Sid was a kid, when he was a little sloth, that would have been that Christmas toy? Oh man, I want that so bad. Please, can I get it? I gotta have that. And did you get it?
Yeah, there was. Like, it was never a toy that was like the popular toy that was like with this movie where like, I have to have this. There was that toy, the cartoon and action figures called Mask. Okay. And there was the semi truck called Rhino. And I wanted that. And this was still when I believed in Santa Claus. And basically I was told, don't even bother asking Santa Claus. It's never going to happen. Like, and they never did stuff like that. It was like, to then
Clearly for your sister. I mean, you made it.
no, this one is for me now.
Oh, I know. That's my pointing out. I'm trying to drive a wedge all these years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not hard. I just really was like, well, I guess I know it's too expensive. And when I think about what it was too, I don't think it was that expensive, but I'll talk to my parents about that later.
We'll send them a link to the episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, and so Christmas came, we did the packages and nothing. And then I went over to my grandparents' house and I remember opening it and seeing, and there it was. They had got it for me.
Wow.
And like, it was just one of those where my mouth was just open, which is so funny. It's just like, it's just a toy, but like, boy, at the time, it's everything,
Oh yeah.
And that was there was a few, but that one still just really, really stands out. It was like, wow, this is cool.
No, that is. Well, I'm glad. What a happy ending. What a happy holiday Sid ending to the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after the fire and the cops left and everything settled down, it was a decent Christmas.
We all know how the sloths like to get. I haven't said the Siths, but that's a whole nother.
Oh yeah.
But the sloths get a little slothy, maybe we could say. Well, for those of you thinking, boy, this Sloth and Liar are talking a lot about, toys and is this some sort of fluff or filler? It is, because now we're going to talk about plot. I don't want to show my paw, if you will, but this movie was directed by a gentleman named Brian Levant, and he has also directed such cornerstone films as Beethoven, The Flintstones, and I believe one of my mom's favorites, Snow Dogs. Although she can let me know in the comments if I'm correct or incorrect on that. But yeah, oddly enough, the director of photography, not that terribly much better of a filmography, but Tommy Boy on there, maybe notable for some listeners. And Eddie, I know, Sid, you're a big Whoopi Goldberg fan, so I know Eddie was your favorite. And I forgot to say this earlier, but everyone listening has to let us know what their favorite Christmas toy was in the comments. That's what the comments are there.
Oh yeah, that absolutely would be really cool to hear. Like, just I could talk about toys all day.
But anyway, this is an interesting team that's making this movie is what I bring it up. 3 different credited editors. So, I mean, really just hats off. What a masterpiece of cinematic juxtapositioning this holiday gift is. But we have Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, whose name is Howard. He is a father. He's a hardworking, dare I say, overworked father. Who typical 90s dad in a movie comedy, which is to say that he's never at home and he never sees his family. So he misses his son's karate practice where his son gets a purple belt, and to make it up to him, he's promised to get him this toy that he actually told his wife he got weeks ago. Then we go on the longest day in the recorded human history, where he tries to get this toy, and he goes up against his opposition, maybe one bad guy, which is played by Sinbad, Myron, who's a postal worker, and then of course we have the late Phil Hartman, who plays Ted, who is this neighbor who's very much into Arnold's wife. And then, of course, Arnold's son, we've got to mention, played by Anakin Skywalker himself, Jake Lloyd. We got a Jim Belushi in there, and we got some other cameos we'll come back to. But anyway, we're talking about plot, but the point is, this is a whole comedy of errors where, in the end, Arnold is at the center of a parade. He is donned a costume with the most advanced technology in the history of human creation. Where he flies into the upper orbit of the atmosphere, swoops down, gives his son a special edition toy. So in the end, not only does the boy get the toy, but his dad becomes the hero that the action figure is based on, which allows him to give the toy.
I never saw it coming.
Mailman. Oh, I mean, who could have thought? I mean, this is why he's the chosen one. This is why he was chosen to save, to bring balance to the force. And he gives it away, and although Myron, the mailman, does go to prison for one of many crimes he commits in this, we can only assume they've only know about a few of them on this one day. That's how the movie ends, and it ends, again, not with the family hugging, but with a crowd carrying Arnold Schwarzenegger as he's like, rah, 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 like he's just celebrating his victory. Sid, what the fuck is this movie?
I remember watching it thinking, wow, if I was a kid like if I saw it as a kid, like yeah, that would be probably a fun movie to watch if you're a kid. There's really no there's really nothing deeper at all in the movie. And I'm not really, yeah, I mean, the target audience has to be so young because the jokes are just so dumb and lame. And like, they're not really jokes, it's just stuff to make a baby laugh.
Yeah, it's like it's
Yeah. I mean,
joke is a setup and a punchline. These are
right.
very straightforward. Oh, something stupid's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because even the point to where, like, when Sinbad trips on the car, the remote control car. I'm not saying like, oh, that could have been so funny, but I mean, even that, instead of doing a fall, they do like an old school feet flat up in the air. You know, it was very Home Alone. Like but it did not work at all. I mean, nothing really in the movie. Well, I mean, it all works. It works because it's exactly what it's supposed to be, which is just an hour and a half of just, I guess, getting your kids to just shut up.
We are talking plot. I do appreciate that 90-minute runtime. I mean, this is a tight 90 minutes, which this again was back in the day when they knew if we want to bring people to the theater and God forbid they're going to come back, we need to make a short movie. And I miss those days.
Yeah.
Watch a lot of 3+ hour movies these days.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard on all line. I mean, sometimes I'm not even awake for 3 hours a day, but there's not a ton to unpack in this plot. I mean, we could actually spend several hours just laughing at the plot and going through all the various details of it because it's kind of silly. The thing that I will say that I don't think works about it, because at the end of the day, this is a comedy, and like we said, the jokes are kind of silly. There is just a lot of, like, I don't even want to call it dark humor, but just sort of like, I don't know, in poor taste kind of humor.
Yeah, there is.
The packages that explode. There's references to Rodney King as Sinbad's getting trampled. I mean, it's just like, whoa. Like,
I know, punching out a reindeer. I mean, but they also just like, I mean, that was their instant solution to everything was the fist in the air. And the hold the fist there for a while, you know? And it was just like, it's just like, oh, it's so funny. Like, that's right, man. You like, if you want it, just beat the shit out of someone. Because even when he starts with the I got a bomb in this box, and you're like, obviously, you know, he doesn't. I mean, obviously he doesn't. But I mean, even if I put myself actually into this character in the movie and everything, and it's very realistic, it's like, you know, he's just holding the box. He doesn't have anything. He's not going to do anything. And everyone's all freaking out. But then you get a nice payoff, right? When the other box actually does become a bomb, right? But it's a payoff of something that wasn't funny in the first place. And it's all cartoony, and I mean, they blow the building up, and then the guy's back alive, and he looks like
it's like
cartoon when the gun blows up in their face, and then he's got the things on his hands. So yeah, I mean, it's so cartoony, and it's hard to take anything serious, but at the same time, they're not making it cartoon. I mean, they're putting it in like a real world aspect. So you just have these bombs jokes, and these bombs go off.
But that's just it. If you're going to have an absurd humor and slapstick humor, I feel like that's okay. But it's
right.
This movie takes itself so seriously at times and is so sappy, and that does not balance out with like extreme slapstick humor that's then somehow grounded again in these really dark themes. Like, I agree. Setting it up that like, oh, he uses this shtick of like, I have a package bomb, and then there accidentally ends up being one. That is a funny joke. I don't know what it's doing in this movie though.
Right. Yeah, it was weird. I mean, yeah, there was a few times where I don't even remember what they were, but where like I laughed. But like, boy, most movies, even serious movies, I found myself laughing more than, at the jokes. I mean, as far as plot goes, again, nitpicky, I guess, but like, because who cares? But who the hell wants to play with a 2.5-foot doll?
Well, Sid, I wanted to talk about that, and we're going to get back into that in visual storytelling. Because,
visual storytelling? Okay.
Because it is a key prop in the movie.
Yeah.
You and I are both guilty of being called toy boys a few times, and so I want to talk about that specifically. But in the meantime, let's designate the plot a score so we can move on. What do you give it 1 out of 10, City?
I'll give it a 2.
The 2 is locked in. Take a big old slurp of that eggnog. You've earned it. We've spent a second. Yeah, it's fresh. We've got some hazelnut on there. The girls just brought it in.
Oh.
That brings us to characters and performances. We have a little game we're gonna play
Is
here.
that algae? That's good.
Yeah, that's right. Just for you, my friend. We have a little game we're gonna play here in a second, but this cast has aged really well. I mean, this is kind of an incredible cast. There's a lot of fun cameos, but obviously we have Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad at the top, the late Phil Hartman, Rita Wilson, like I had mentioned earlier, Jake Lloyd, Jim Belushi is in here. We have a lot of wrestling fans that listen to the show. The Big Show, or Paul White, is very young. This is 1996 when they filmed. He plays a giant Santa at one point that punches a little person so hard.
A shirtless Santa.
That's right. Just a big strapping Santa, big meaty Santa.
Big Show. He came into a Home Depot one time when I worked there, and he wanted a generator. Because we had a few wrestlers come into that place. And so he wanted a generator, and it was up on like the shelf, and I was like, yeah, let me get the forklift. And he's like, no, I'll get it. And he just starts to pull it down. And I can't let you do that. Like, I have to get the forklift. But I don't think he would have had a problem, man. I think he would have just.
And then he just stood the shelf like King Kong. Yeah. He palmed it with one hand and threw it through the wall.
God. It was funny, man.
You actually, this is breaking news. Sid the Cinema Sloth may have saved the professional wrestling career of Paul White, because God forbid if he picked,
that's right,
something could have gone terribly wrong.
Yeah,
you're a hero.
This could have been a different. It's a boring story, but yeah, it could have been a different story. Could have been. And so then the Big Show, he grabs the generator and it falls on him, and
this
broke both. Yeah.
In another universe, Paul White is the greatest what-if story in the history of pro wrestling, with the worst why he can't be a wrestler because he had a generator fall on him at Home Depot.
You're a glass of eggnog, half full, man.
Hey, look, it's the holidays. I'm thankful you're here. We're talking about characters and performances. Before we play the game, let me know how do you feel about Arnold's performance in this? Did you enjoy it at all?
I mean, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I always like, of all his stuff, because I always feel like when his comedies, he's actually pretty funny. He's actually pretty good as far as timing goes and stuff. I mean, I know people don't think of him as like this comedic actor. Yeah, this movie was just kind of, again, he's just, I mean, all right, let me ask you, are you asking me how do I feel about his character or his acting as that character?
Well, I mean, is there much of a differentiation between the two in this? Because I think for me, you're right. Arnold usually does come with enough charm that can like elevate a role. I'll give you a perfect example. He's probably my favorite part of like a Batman and Robin, which is an objectively bad movie, and he's chewing the scenery in it. But that's actually, I don't know, kind of charming. It brings a charm to the movie. For me, he's just sort of boring in this. Like, nothing really stands out for me about him. Again, he doesn't really seem to elevate it. And even the movie ends on this really sappy note, and it seems like he's really trying to like be, I mean, it seemed like he was in campaign mode. It didn't feel like he was really in touch with what the material was or what it could have been. And again, I hate to put it all on his shoulders, but he is the
definitely
shoulders. Yeah.
I mean, Sinbad, one, like, I didn't know how tall he was. And I'm like, he's actually a good adversary for Schwarzenegger, but he's kind of presented as kind of like, a nice guy. And they both are a little bit kind of nutty. But somehow, I guess, along the way, he becomes the main villain. He takes it too far, I guess.
Yeah, he does.
Right. But he's gone for like a good portion of the movie too for a while. Like he just, I guess I thought like it was more of a buddy thing where like they were going to be in it the entire movie together side by side. And it just seemed like a long time for him to be gone. But
oh, I agree. I mean, I feel like they did Sinbad real dirty in this one. There's no reason this movie needs to end with Sinbad like being carted off to jail,
Yeah.
Because the reality is that we joke about like, oh, Sinbad, all the stuff he did in this movie.
That was the other.
How he deserves to go to jail, but so did Arnold.
So
But if
darn-
Arnold breaks into someone's house, lights it on fire,
I know, man.
beats the shit out of multiple people, threatens store employees. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a menace in this movie.
I know. And then, and like the only black guy in the movie goes to jail at the end.
Oh, this was a time when there was no sensitivity to that sort of thing.
No. And then the three wise men, the head that gets kicked up and thrown on fire, Balthazar. Don't tell me, man. Don't tell me Hollywood's not racist. Yeah, let me see.
Let me research if Hollywood is racist.
And take a look and see.
It says here it's not, Sid.
It's-
No.
Honestly, my biggest disappointment was, and then this has nothing to do with the actor at all. It's just completely the material. Is Phil Hartman. I love Phil Hartman. Phil Hartman is the best. Everything he does, he comes in and he makes that scene awesome. But he had nothing to do here because he was just playing a scumbag neighbor. Even in news radio, where he's kind of a shyster, shady guy. He has so much heart, you know. It's like this character is like, yeah, man. Every time he was on, I'm like, oh, I love Phil Hartman, but boy, he's doing nothing for me. And then you could say, oh, what a good actor, right? You could play this guy. But I feel like for a Christmas movie, it just, yeah, I was really disappointed. I was hoping like he would bring the laughter, but alas,
I mean, he is playing the true villain in the movie, which I, mean, I guess there really are two, but he is the one who ultimately it's kind of okay to dislike him, and he's really positioned as, you know, a guy who's trying to have an affair. Like he's in theory an adulterer. To me, they could have fleshed out the character a little more and maybe made it I think it would have done a lot more to maybe find out that the reason his marriage failed is because he cheated on his wife or something. Like, I felt like it was weird that he was positioned at all points in the movie as a genuinely good guy that like a lot of women wanted to be with. And he was like turning down these women hoping that Arnold's marriage was going to fall apart, but throughout 75% of the movie, it does seem like their marriage is going to fall apart with relatively good reason. It's weird because he is scummy, but he's scummy because the movie needs him to be, and it just sucks because it's like if you're going to make him a villain, make it fully fleshed out a bit. I know it sounds silly to develop the character that much, but yeah, I feel like you could have developed him more. You could have left Sinbad like not getting carted away at the end. Yeah, a little unfortunate. And I was trying to look up as we talked some records here, and I can't find it specifically. But it's I mean, Sinbad is one of, if not the top touring stand-up comedians of this time in the 90s. So again, we're not just talking about some lightweight. I mean, this is a guy that's had television shows under his belt. This is a household name. And again, he's just this sort of doofus drunken mailman who's getting hauled off by the cops at the end with a little white kid handing him an action figure, and that's his Lynn.
An action figure? You mean a gigantic doll? It's 4.5 feet tall.
The size of E.T.
Yeah.
I teased a game. Yes. How you feel about playing a quick game designed just for you, Sid the Cinema Sloth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about it, and normally, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do really well because you mentioned what it might be about. But I don't think I'm gonna do well. So let's do it. Let's try it.
Sid, I love your confidence as always, but believe me, this game today, we call it Were They in Seinfeld? And this is brought to you by the Mandela Effect. So what we're gonna do, I have 6 members of the Jingle All the Way cast. I'm gonna give you their name and the name of their character, and you're gonna tell me if they ever appeared in Seinfeld. Now here's the caveat. You get 2 lifelines, meaning if you don't know who one of the actors is by names, I'll show you their photo. But you only get 2 of them out of the 6. Okay. So up first, we have Curtis Armstrong, aka Chain Smoking Booster. Now, this gentleman, just to refresh your memory, he played Booster in Parade. Booster was the pink.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was the one who was in the big pink suit and talked to Arnold and you know, was kind of providing a lot of really helpful exposition during the parade fight scene. Was he ever in an episode of Seinfeld? Curtis Armstrong, aka chain smoking booster?
I believe that's Booger from Revenge of the Nerds. Was Booger ever in? Boy, part of me wants to say yes, because he's been in some sitcoms over the years. But I'm trying to think if he was in Seinfeld. Actually, I'm gonna say yes, he was.
You're answering yes. The correct answer is no. He's never appeared in an
Never
episode
been
of
in-
Seinfeld, but that's okay. Sid, I thought he did too. Believe it or not, I had to check because I was so sure. So let us know in the comments if we missed it. But I did some research. Turns out he didn't. Okay, up next we have Danny Woodburn, aka Tony the Elf. Was he ever in Seinfeld? His real name, Danny Woodburn. In this movie, he played Tony the Elf. Was he ever in Seinfeld?
I think at one point he was Mickey on Seinfeld.
But that's right. All right, we got one there. One for one. Sid, doing well. All right. Up next, we have, of course, the co-star of the film, Rita Wilson, aka Liz Langston. Was she ever in Seinfeld? Was she ever one of Jerry's girls? Maybe she dated George. Maybe she dated Kramer. Rita Wilson, when you close your eyes, you ever see her sitting there in the coffee shop?
I actually, I don't think she was in Seinfeld. I want to say no.
You're gonna say no. That's correct. She was not. She was not. You're doing well. All right.
Right.
Halfway through, 3 to go.
Yeah.
One of the toy store clerks that Arnold Schwarzenegger threatens was played by Chris Parnell. So Chris Parnell, aka the toy store clerk, was he ever in an episode of Seinfeld?
Yes, he was.
You are correct. Do you remember which episode? I'll give you extra points if you know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was in all of a sudden I think he was in Friends too, and that started to jump to that episode. I'm like, wait, Chandler wasn't in Seinfeld. I think he wasn't one of the executives with the meeting, NBC meeting?
That's right. He was an NBC executive in the butter shave.
Cool. Nice. Right.
Well done, Sid. All right, so you got 3 right, only 1 wrong, 2 left. Martin Mull, aka this is what he was credited as, Mr. Ponytail Man, aka the radio DJ.
Right.
Martin Mull, was he ever in Seinfeld? Incredible resume, credible filmography. Did he ever get on Seinfeld?
I'm gonna say no. I don't recall Martin Mull being on Seinfeld.
You're correct. He was never on Seinfeld, never once. But we do have one left.
Okay.
A gentleman named Phil Morris, aka Gale Force, aka he was one of the parade anchors. Was he ever in an episode of Seinfeld?
That name, his name, I know that name from Seinfeld. So I'm going to say yes, even though I can't even picture his face. I know that name was in Seinfeld.
Well, you are going to feel very, very foolish when I tell you who he played, because he is an iconic character. And when I saw him on the parade route, I got very excited. Jackie Childs.
Oh, that's who that was.
Yeah.
Oh, he was so good. Yeah, he was awesome, and so was the woman next to him. She did a great job. I'm not sure who that was. They were great. Oh, yeah, I didn't even realize that was him.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well done. Technically, you got that right. So 5.
Yeah.
That is
Okay. Yeah. That's his right. I knew the name, but okay, cool.
There you go. 5 out of 6, buddy. Not bad. Well done. Happy holidays. That concludes, well, were they in Seinfeld? And now that brings us back, of course, to characters and performances. Now, let me just ask you, how do you feel about little Jake Lloyd in this? This is pre-Anakin. You know, a lot of people beat him up for Anakin, and I feel like there's some other stuff you could beat him up for.
I mean, I saw him in my first like, oh yeah, I know this kid, and my first thought was, I hate this kid. Couldn't remember where I saw him. Thought to myself, I hate this kid. And I mean, obviously, I don't really hate a child that I don't know. Oh no, yeah, I could do without him. On merit of him being an actor, a child actor in this movie, no, I still didn't really care for him. I still thought he was hokey. I never felt bad for this kid. I don't give a shit about this kid at all in this movie.
I want to get a score out of you because
couldn't they get him a Culkin for this role?
They were between Culkins. One Culkin was too old. The other Culkin wasn't ready. That's true. They're ripe and prime. These Culkin.
Yeah.
Get a Culkin in there too early.
Mhm.
It's a mess. Then you're down a Culkin. Let's get a score out of you because I think one of the issues with Jamie Langston, aka Jake Lloyd's character, is actually connected to the visual storytelling and the production design. So I want to dump into that. But visual or characters and performances, 1 out of 10, Sid. What are we giving this one?
God, I was going to say a 3. I almost want to give it a 2. Oh, you know what? I'm going to give it. Should it be a 3? I'm gonna give it a 2, man. Most movies I can find something where I'm like, all right, well, this gets some points for that. I'm giving it a 2.
Look, I can confirm to the audience, Sid has almost finished his eggnog, and there's no holiday cheers. It is balancing out.
And it's not even like I hate this movie. It
Sure sounds like you do.
I know, but it just did nothing for me. Okay, visual storytelling.
We're talking about visual storytelling. I'll make this point, and I'll tee it up to you, and then we could talk about the doll. When in the first act of this movie, we go into Jake Lloyd's room. He has a Captain America mural painted on the wall. I genuinely believe this robs the audience of the ability to have any sympathy for this child moving forward. He is spoiled beyond belief. I would argue that the 3 minutes we sit and spend in that bedroom has more corporate sponsors than any other scene in the movie. And there's a scene that takes place in a fucking toy store.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, he comes across as such a brat as Dad picks up his purple belt and is trying to make him laugh. And we find out that Dad's been to 3 of the 5 belt ceremonies. It's not like he's missed all 5. He just missed this most recent one. And oh, by the way, only by maybe 20 minutes. Like, he did go all the way there, got a speeding ticket trying to get there. Kid had
and it's for work. It's not like he's a gambler. It's like he's working. My dad had to work. My dad had to work. It's like tough shit. He's got to work.
Well, the mom, Liz, it's set up like she doesn't work. So it is, again, it's put on Arnold. They have this huge house, this beautiful house. This kid has toys and this beautiful room, a huge Captain America mural on his wall. So I bring that up because I really felt like the production design did a huge disservice to the ability to like this family or kids. I mean, I totally get if the direction is make the room look like every little white boy's dream room, then yeah, maybe, but I'm just like, I don't know, call me crazy, but especially watching it as an adult, I'm like, this kid doesn't have a leg to stand on. He's got no reason to be upset about any of this.
The kid's a purple belt already? I don't know what that is, but I that always makes me laugh when a child that young could have, what did he say? He was like 2 away from black. What is it? It's like, it doesn't
Out Arnold.
Yeah, anyway. But yeah, visual storytelling, like you said, with the sponsorship. I mean, it's kind of interesting, but then it's also kind of very distracting at the parade. Like, every character you could ever imagine was in that parade. I've never seen a parade that had every character like that. But yeah, his bedroom, he was plenty of stuff, man. His X-Men sheets. And again, I guess the thing too about the karate thing is like, that shit costs money, and he's in there. He's been in it for quite a while too, to be getting that many belts. And even the other kid, why does he get stuff? His dad's great. Yeah, he's only great because of the divorce. It's so, yeah, there's no, the moral is basically just whine and get what you want. I don't know.
No, from a moral standpoint, I hear exactly what you're saying. It's a rotten movie. It's spoil your children. You're a bad parent if your children aren't happy. And this is a movie made by people trying to push you to go buy things for your children. It's very, very clear. To bring it back to visual storytelling, let's talk about the Turbo Doll, Sid.
Oh, yeah.
You and I, we're both toy boys. Have you ever wanted to play with a toy that was over 12 inches tall?
No. It's so weird to me. Like, what are you even supposed to do with that? I mean, obviously they must have made it large just to be a prop that you could see clearly. But it's just, I mean, yeah, the thing sticks out of the backpack. I mean, and then it's also, why are half of these dolls in boxes and half of them aren't? It's just one of those weird things.
Well, I do have to point out, They do mention, and you might have missed it.
Oh, that he was a special.
It was the special edition one, which I do think
Yeah.
accounts to why it's substantially larger than the other ones. But even the other
Yeah, the other ones were large too, though.
yeah, really
Yeah.
big. And this is 1996. I mean, call me
Yeah.
crazy, but this Turbo Man, I don't think that would have been a cool toy. Like, I just feel like nobody, like I mentioned earlier, the White Ranger craze. That's a few years before this, and the White Ranger toy is significantly more, I don't know, it's articulated and advanced and looks better than this thing. I mean, this looks like a toy that, if it was ever going to be popular, would have been popular in like 1987 or something.
Yeah, or even the 70s. Because even, I mean, just because in the 80s, I think about early 80s was a switch to G.I. Joe.
It's all function and accessory toys.
And then after Star Wars, the late 70s with the smaller figures. So when you have a figure that large, it's just instantly, it's like, I mean, it's bigger than a G.I. Joe from the 60s, and it's just a weird looking doll. And I know they're just trying to do a generic doll, but I mean, it definitely had Power Rangers influence. In fact, when the movie first started, I thought that's what they were going for when they were showing a clip of the people in the costumes fighting and stuff. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I thought like it's got kind of like a Power Rangers feel, and then that was gone.
Yeah, no, look, I'm glad you brought that up. I totally forgot, because that's probably my favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah,
first 2 or 3 minutes where you're kind of just watching this. I can't remember if it was a commercial or it was the TV show, which it was, but it's just like the in-universe thing. And that was really fun. I wish I don't know, somehow was a world where we could have revisited that more or something. But
well, in fact, I actually thought that as soon as they're showing that, I'm like, oh, I guess Arnold Schwarzenegger's playing this character. I didn't even think that it wasn't him, and so so then I'm like, so at the end when they're gonna make him, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I kind of thought I saw that coming as soon as the movie started.
Well, that's what was so funny.
Yeah,
his wife at the end when he unmasks himself, she goes, "Oh, Howard," as if like it took the giant rubber suit to realize Mr. Universe is he in good shape? Yeah,
right.
Well, let me ask you then, Sid, before I get a number out of you, again, visual storytelling, this is 1996. The movie does conclude with an incredibly gutsy attempt at a jetpack sequence. I mean, this
That was very Looney Tunes, right in the middle of.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And this is 3 years after Jurassic Park, so I'm just putting that.
Oh,
This is bad for 96.
oh yeah. I know. I don't understand. I mean, you might as well just paint it on the clear cell and move it across the.
Oh, dude, yeah. It's like early CGI smoke. Like all the smoke trails look bad, but the way it's composited looks bad. At one point, he's flying full force and he just goes headfirst into a wall, but it just sort of like he stops and shakes like a cartoon.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like,
Yeah, and again, I mean, I could see a 4-year-old just dying. Sure, your superhero just slammed into a wall, just like Bugs Bunny or something. But it's supposed to be a family movie, older. It just doesn't seem like that young of a movie to have such dumb humor in it.
I mean, maybe it was meant to look a little bit like grungy VFX, and that was so funny. I don't know if it was just last minute studio no that we need to go way over the top at the end, and they ran. I don't know, but I thought it looked like shit.
It just felt like the whole thing kind of feels like a cash grab.
Yeah, and so I mean, look, from counterproductive production design to bad special effects to building the movie around a toy that I don't think any kid in our universe would actually would want and put on their Christmas list. What do you give the visual storytelling 1 out of 10?
A 3.
There's that holiday spirit, bumping it up from a 2. That's what I like to see. Well,
I guess I'll give it a 3. Al.
Spoiler, you're up to 14 points so far for the movie. So two categories to go. Let's see how far we can get. Use of sound is what we're talking about now. Let's face it, there's not a whole lot to talk about here. We mentioned earlier that this is a really they go for slapstick humor, but the sound effects don't really balance out with that. There's no sound effects that make it sound more slapsticky. It's a very grounded, realistic sort of Foley design.
Yeah.
super straightforward Christmas music of the 90s. Like, I can't remember anything notable. Like, I don't think there's any original music, maybe some Turbo Man stuff, but
No, nothing. I mean, I'm trying to think. It's stuck in the real, like you said, it's set very much in the real world, but they're doing these strange things that just don't work right. Yeah, no, I really have nothing to say about the sound. It did, yeah. I'm ready to score that thing.
give it to me, baby. What do you give it?
It's Christmas, man. I'm gonna give it a 2.
Hey, Margie, refill his eggnog, will you? All right, we got one more to go. I want to see what we can get in themes, and let's face it, themes probably not.
This is gonna be
This ain't the category to try to get a Hail Mary in. Fuck it. Name a theme? Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
What's the theme in this movie?
greed. You know,
And symbolism.
yeah. Because I mean, the other thing is it's like all he wants is that he wants that toy so bad, and it's not even that he wants it. He wants it because everybody wants it. If he doesn't have it, he's gonna be a loser. And I just feel like my parents would be like, "Well, then you're gonna be a loser." You know,
They already are. Yeah.
I'm not spending that much in tennis shoes, you know. But so
Oh, poor Sid. Always wanted tennis shoes of the tree.
I know they were right though. It's hard to climb. But then at the end, it's kind of like, oh, see, he doesn't need the toy. It's just about his dad, and it's like what you get like a little half, just the little tiniest minute of a switch to go, oh, there's a moral to this. But it's so
He chooses to give the toy up, but only after insurmountable circumstances provide him with the toy.
right. See,
Which is not a lesson any child can take away. Because the lesson should be you can't get the toy and he's okay with that. I'll fix
Right.
this movie right now. I'll tell you exactly what the plot of this movie should be. Dad goes in, does the purple belt headband, doesn't get over. Little Annie tells him, all I want for Christmas is Turbo Man. Dad looks him in the eye and goes, son, I'm going to do everything I can. Tomorrow, you and I are going to go get a Turbo Man. And it's similar plot, maybe minus a few bombs. Just let them spend the day together. The fact that
Right,
this
right.
whole movie is about they don't get to spend enough time together. And the whole movie, the kid doesn't get to spend any time with his dad. The point of the movie should be they spend so much time together. By the end, the kid doesn't want the toy. He just wants to spend time with his dad. And his dad realizes, oh, I don't have to get him a toy. I just need to spend more time with him. Yes, the moral of the story.
Yeah.
The fact that they spend the whole movie apart means the movie itself is counterproductive to the point it's trying to fucking make.
Yeah, and he doesn't it's not like he even gets to the parade to spend time with them. It's like he only spends time with them when he has to save him, but that's also the only time the kid really, it's like it took his dad having to be the character that he wanted the toy of before he appreciated him.
It took his dad being the character, saving him flying around, picking him out of the crowd to get the special edition toy, the one-of-one toy that's only given out in a parade. I mean, this is... And no kid in the history of the world has ever received a gift like this. I mean,
Right.
this is
Yeah.
only a movie we're going to throw a parade to give the kid a toy. Arnold Schwarzenegger returns home and he sees in his front window that his wife and his neighbor are in the house. He doesn't go home, go be with your wife, go be with your son. Instead, he breaks into the neighbor's house to steal the toy, ends up getting in a fist fight with a reindeer, trashing the guy's house, almost burning it down, and then looking like an asshole as a result. And it's just like, you can't have a plot that gives your hero opportunities to be a hero, and he chooses to go be a villain.
The other thing that's so funny is, or not funny, but ridiculous, is the wise man head gets caught on fire. He falls into the fireplace. It's in the fireplace. He's freaking out, dude. Oh, what am I gonna do? It's on fire. It's like, it's in the fireplace, man. Like, what are you freaking out for?
The flue is open. You're good.
Yeah, he pulls it out of the fireplace, and then the carpet catches on fire. Like,
Let's get to the bottom of this, Sid. This Christmas fruitcake. What do you give the theme? 1 out of 10. The question is above or below a 2. That's the
Yeah,
threshold at this point.
I don't think of myself as being a Grinch, but I just think the themes in this movie are a 1.
Sid, you may not think yourself a Grinch, but you know,
Yeah, I know.
no, look, hey, I mean, look, I only say you're objectively a Grinch because you're about to make me look like a real nice lion. I thought I wasn't giving this movie a nice score, but I'll just read it back to you now. What you gave it, you gave the plot a 2, the characters and performances a 2, the visual storytelling a 3, a real high point for this movie. The use of sound 2. I'm assuming that's an endorsement of Sinbad's comedy, and then the theme is a 1 for a total of 20. I think this is officially the lowest movie you've scored in the history of the show. That is an F. So would you give this movie an F, a D? Do you want to adjust it? My God, man, for the holidays, what are you going to do, Sid?
No, man. I mean, honestly, it's like even if I knew a kid and he was like, tell me a really funny Christmas movie, it wouldn't be this one. I wouldn't point out. I wouldn't point this out to any adult.
What about an enemy? Would you?
Yeah. I mean, even a Phil Hartman fan. It's not like you love Phil Hartman. You haven't seen Jingle All the Way. You love young Anakin. It's funny because it wasn't even like I was miserable watching it. It was entertaining. You know what I mean? It was just absolutely nonsense. It's just, yeah, that's probably why I've never had a desire to see it before. I was really glad I got to see it.
Well, I'm glad that it wasn't all bad. Well, okay, then I'll just ask you: that's technically an F plus? So is that what you want to give this? An F plus, a D minus? What do you? It's an even 20.
I don't care. I don't care. You know what? F plus? Yeah, that's fine, dude. That's my holiday spirit. It's an F plus.
Everybody can let us know again in the comments. I feel like Arnie, if he's listening, he's gonna have something to say. I gave the plot to your 2. I gave it a 4. I thought it was bad. I don't know that I thought it was, whatever. I gave it a 4. These scores mean nothing. Characters and performances, I gave it a 6. I thought for the cast alone, there's so many heavy hitters here. The characters are stupid. The performances are forgettable. So I gave it a 6. Visual storytelling to your 3, I gave it a 4. Use of sound, I gave it a 5. It was completely neutral. I thought it did whatever it was supposed to do. I thought it could be better, but I thought it could also have been worse. For themes, I gave it a 4 because I thought this movie very much knows what it's trying to do. It's just not trying to do something worth doing. So all in all, I gave it a 46 or a C minus to your 20 or F plus, as we established.
Yeah. Look, you want to hear something funny?
I would love to.
As you're telling
Watch
me,
Jingle All the Way. I really want to hear something funny.
yeah. So as you're telling me this, I realized that I scored this on a scale of 1 to 5, not 1 to 10.
So do I need to double all your scores?
No, because I realized I'm going to keep it exactly where it is. I think it's fine out of a scale of 1 to 10. Just good to go.
Wow.
Good to
Well,
go.
first of all, if that is not an endorsement of Sid's commitment to this show, the 20, how many episodes in?
I love Schwarzenegger, dude. I mean, I do. Like, I love that guy, even when he's doing stupid things. Like,
No, I
grew up with him, and he was like a hero, an action hero, like that I grew up with, and I was like, no, man, he should have.
No, look, I'm just pointing out the fact that
Yeah.
you're however many episodes in and you
Oh,
still haven't figured out the scoring system. But yeah, it's good.
you know, yeah, I'll get there. I'll get there. We're doing it on a 25 next time, right?
That's right. It's all of Sid's scores in the past now have asterisks next to them, but oh look, it's the holidays. He's had a lot of eggnog, folks. Let him off the hook. I didn't even tell you this earlier. I saw this movie in theaters. Oh, I was a kid who went and saw this. Like this was not new to me. I was seeing this movie before.
What did you think of it when you were a kid?
Totally indifferent. I remember going with my buddy. I had one of my best friends as a kid. Arnold was his guy. Like he was obsessed with Arnold. So anytime an Arnold movie came out, we went and saw it. I remember him being pretty indifferent too. I don't know that I would say disappointed, but it was just sort of like, meh. And we would have, like, again, I think Sinbad may have had like a TGIF show or something on at the time, or had. So like we knew who he was, and like Even a Phil Hartman we probably would have been aware of, from SNL to The Simpsons to news radio at this point. Even as a kid, like, he was a big enough star. And as a kid who loved toys, I think I was going into this thinking I was going to fall in love with a toy, because I go and I see Toy Story as a kid. As soon as I leave that movie, I want a Buzz Lightyear toy.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie, you go and you see it and you're like, that thing, again, as we covered, looks like a piece of shit.
I hope they come out with figures of this movie, though. I would love to have a Martin Mull figure from this movie. I think
Ponytail Man, yeah. There may or may not be some fun Christmas merch that you can get at Platinum Plastic on Redbubble, which is where we have our show merchandise. We have some show merchandise that's Sid. If you want to support Sid, you can wear one of his t-shirts. It's based on his favorite snack that he eats while he has movies. Well, he watches movies. But we've got lots of stuff in there. In fact, we put out a catalog this year, a little gift guide catalog, so you can check that out on all of our social channels. But until then, leave us a comment. There's lots to talk about this movie. If you're a fan, if you didn't like it, you just tell us what your favorite toy was growing up. But until next time, Sid, Merry Christmas. I would be inclined to say it's Turbo Time or something, that this movie doesn't deserve it. And real quickly, let us know, and then I'm going to cut it. So you just say the name. What's your favorite Christmas movie?
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Love it. All right, next year, we'll talk that. Happy holidays, everyone, and I hope you're enjoying your 2026 so far. Hey, and on that note, if you've been enjoying Real Talk over the last couple months, or even if this is your first episode, I'd love for you to leave a review, a kind one, in fact. Maybe 5 stars, whatever you like. But the feedback helps, especially as we're trying to get Real Talk in front of as many eyes as possible in 2026. Thanks for your support, and here's the many great reviews. The following holiday review is sponsored by the Nakatomi Corporation. Not every office party that you attend will lend profound clarity on the state of your marriage and perhaps life itself. But then again, one John McClane is not your average estranged husband, nor are Hans Gruber and company your average party crashers. For anyone not familiar, the story of Die Hard is a man versus man scenario that plays out on every floor of the Nakatomi Tower and creates a unique tone few action movies and perhaps fewer Die Hard flicks have failed to capture since. The film took television star Bruce Willis and launched him into another stratosphere, allowing him to become one of the biggest stars for the next 2 decades. I'll admit, I was a little late to discovering Die Hard, as I was in film school when I saw it for the first time, but it became an instant favorite of mine and part of my holiday rotation ever since, as this violent romp is somehow brimming with holiday cheer. And although some of the performances may drift, it is always a romantic adventure that reminds me of classic Hollywood. Although completely unintentional, our returning guest reviewer, director Lakeisha Jackson, is quickly carving out a niche of reviewing films about terrorists taking over confined spaces. But I'm happy to report that, unlike her review of United 93, Lakeisha has seen Die Hard before and is herself, in fact, a Die Hard fan of Christmas films. So I'm extremely excited to welcome her back. Lakeisha, thank you for being here, and I hope you'll please accept this fake Rolex as a Christmas gift that might save your life someday.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is my jam. It's Christmas. I'm so happy and excited to be talking, especially about this one.
Yeah, and again, I'll, for the listeners, a little peek behind the curtain. You and I were catching up, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. You've recently completed a film. Maybe we could tease that and talk a little bit more about it at the end. But you were kind enough to share a link with me, and I was checking it out. And you let me know that you love Christmas films, and I was like, well, I'm so great to hear. I'm so glad to hear it because we have a Christmas show coming up. And I asked you to name a few. The first one you named was Die Hard, and I was so happy to hear it because you and I both very much love this movie. So I'm very excited to be talking about it with you. I mentioned in my intro, I saw this when I was in college. I'm a little ashamed to say my girlfriend at the time and I went to the theaters and saw the 4th Die Hard. And that was my first Die Hard film, but I enjoyed it enough. And I think we went to maybe Walmart afterwards and they had all 3 movies for, I don't know, $20 or something. And I got it and loved it. But I want to know, when were you introduced to Die Hard? What was your first Die Hard experience?
I don't know if it was available on HBO after it had aired on, in the theaters and stuff. But back in the day, my parents, I don't know, maybe somebody had HBO at their house and they used to like dub a lot of the movies on VHS.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we saw it like that or if we actually rented it, but that's how I first got. It was pretty close to when it came out. But yeah, I've been a fan ever since.
Anybody who came up in the 80s or 90s can attest. The borrowed VHS, if you will, was a staple. It was a must. We all did it. So no shame there. You're now a veteran. You appeared on the very first episode, the pilot episode of Real Talk, where we chatted United 93. I kind of joked in the open. Some similar themes here. Total coincidence. But I'm very glad to have you back. And you know the drill. We talk about plot first. This is certainly a plot-heavy movie that kind of plays out all the way until the end.
Like, no lie, I think maybe the first 45 minutes, I was like, oh shit, there was an actual storyline here because I totally forgot that he was going to meet her because they had marital issues and all of this stuff. And I'm like, every memory I have of Die Hard is always about the action and all the crap that happened. But as far as the plot goes, I love that it was multifaceted in that he wasn't a very supportive spouse. They were already broken up. She's gone back to her maiden name. And then all of a sudden, like he calls the homeboy downstairs to say, well, I'm not sure what's going to happen. And then boom, that's when all of the action starts. Because I love plot heavy stories like that, it resonated with me when I started writing my own because I had sent an original pilot to somebody and they're like, yeah, this is really heavy on plot. And when I think about the stuff I grew up watching, it was stuff like this. It was always the action, the badass that just catapulted the entire story. Although this is character heavy, it's about John, his relationship, and being a cop and all of that stuff and the marriage. But yeah, I enjoy the plot. I think it worked perfectly for this particular scenario. I don't see how anything different would have made it better.
You touched on something about when you rewatch it this time, that the romance side, I'm using that word, kind of maybe stood out. It's very similar to me, and it was the first time I sort of realized in many ways this movie is sort of a fantasy. Like it's very in this kind of, again, action romance way where you have the hero who has sort of lost the girl and he's like getting the girl back. And in many ways, it's just that simple. You could set this in like almost any century and change the backdrop and change the archetype of the bad guy. They happen to be terrorists in this, but you could kind of swap it out. Well, I want to know the end. There's sort of like almost like a cherry on top. A little, you think the movie's over and then boom, guy pops back up. That moment is parodied pretty well in the movie, like at Dumb and Dumber. I'm curious. It sounds like it did, but what are maybe just some of your thoughts on that little extra bit at the end, which gives Sergeant Al Powell, shout out to another Al, kind of the moment to redeem his character too.
Although I love his character, like it just wasn't, even all these years later, not that he's not memorable because their relationship was really important, I think, for the plot of the story. When he comes back and kind of saves the day, especially with, his whole thing with shooting a kid and being afraid using his gun. And then he actually does it for the right reasons this time. I think it was cool. Vel, I think, did an amazing job as the cop. And because, a lot of us back then were seeing him as the cop Carl Winslow from TGIF. Like, so we'd never seen him in like a serious, at least I don't remember seeing him in a serious role like that as a cop. And I think it was a great character arc for him. Definitely was a satisfying watch every time.
Well, I should ask, actually, 1 out of 10, what do we give the plot? Because that way we could dive into characters and performances, which, let's face it, that's what we really want to talk about here.
For the plot, definite 10 for me.
I'm feeling the Christmas cheer right out of the gate. We got a 10. Very good. Characters and performances. This movie has not one, but two pretty iconic performances. And you mentioned a second ago, obviously this movie turns into a franchise. Bruce Willis's character, John McClane, Again, to the best of my knowledge, is in all of them. People could tell me if there's like 4 more diehards I'm not thinking of that they're starting somewhere else. But what I think is interesting is Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber obviously only appears in this movie, but is kind of just as memorable of a character, if not maybe even a little more memorable than John McClane himself. Am I out of line by saying that, Lakeisha? I don't know. Keep me honest here.
No, no, I don't think you were out of line at all because he was such a well, like he was such like this worldly, sophisticated, charming, evil dude with that accent of his that was so off-putting, and the way he delivered lines, like everything about him was, I think that in a way to me, that's what makes horror horror. It's the quiet shit. And like he is quietly horrific in his delivery throughout the entire movie, which makes when he gets his just desserts at the end so satisfying because of all the hell he rained that evening. But yeah, no, those two definitely. I would have loved to seen them. Again, I don't know if they did anything together after that, but it was a great um, mirror to the opposite of, who John McClane was versus Hans.
But yeah, I think Hans is like you touched on it, but there is just this, like, he's charming. Like, I hate to say it, but he is that Hannibal Lecter. Like, he's kind of funny at times. Even when he puts on the American accent, it's funny, but it kind of works. And the way he's able to trick, I don't know, anytime a villain can trick the hero, especially when you really do like and admire the hero, there's just something about it, because Alan Rickman is so crafty. It doesn't seem like John McClane is dumb for getting tricked by him. It just seems like Rickman is that good at, playing this sort of chess game. Yeah, when he falls at the end in that shot, it is so satisfying. He's still firing up at the end, and he is just like that bug you're trying to swallow.
Since the very end, like
And then is dramatic in that slow motion, and he's shooting up. He hits the ground, and then what does the one doofus like cop say? He's like, I hope that wasn't one of the hostages. And it's just this immediate kind of laugh. And so that's, again, the movie never takes itself too seriously, which is one of the reasons I think it's such a fun holiday movie, because it is really violent and it's rated R and all this stuff going on, but it's super digestible because it's always just sort of joking around.
we see little Lucy McClane. And just funny sidebar, when I saw the kid, because it's been so long, I was like, oh, I forgot they had two kids, which I think the boy shows up either in the second or third movie in some way. If memory serving me right, I don't know. You see the kids, you see she answered the phone, she asked about daddy, you see the maid, the house isn't like some loft in the sky somewhere where you could tell mom is never there, but you can tell that she's made a home for them.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that she was like, okay, so you don't want me to do this, or you're not going to support me. Bet, hold my beer. I'm going to do it anyway. And you're going to fall in line or you're not. And because this is a, Asian company, I'm going to go with my maiden name, which I thought like that was like, okay, that was maybe a little bit overkill. Maybe it didn't have to do that, but I think that was just like the extra sprinkle of salt on John's wound. But I love that she was strong, because a man like John McClane is gonna need a woman that's gonna be able to go 10 toes down with him. Like any other chick would have been back home in New York watching it unfold from home. But I love that she was the exact opposite of that, and she was just as strong throughout the movie, when it came to her standing up to Hans when he did finally realize who she was, which I thought was a good way that they did that so late and not, super early in the movie to make it, okay, now she needs him to be her hero, save the day. I really enjoyed that.
It's really satisfying because when John shoots Hans and Hans falls back through the window, they're very much working together. Like, he doesn't call her Holly, but he definitely says something. And there's sort of like, you get that they're on the same page. Like, she totally knows, and she kind of ducks out of the way when he shoots. And it is like he's saving her, but they have to work together in that moment. And, for everything they've gone through, just in that one moment to see them working together and kind of totally unify and speak their own little language. It was emotionally like a great payoff to that. And none of that works if she's not kind of holding her own the whole time. And again, as a man or as a male lion who has, himself fallen in love with many strong women, that's where there is always like I don't want to say a distance, but they require their space. They need their thing. And you kind of want to be something for them that maybe you can't really be because they don't need. And that's what, again, I go back to. There's a part of Die Hard that I think is a fantasy, and maybe even a little bit of a fantasy for men, because when you're with a strong, independent woman, you can't literally swoop in and save them from terrorists and things like that.
So of course I love that Takagi. I hate that he got shot, but um, he sat there, with Hans and was like, basically, you're just gonna have to shoot me, and without hesitation, it happens, and I'm like, come on, man, you didn't even try to negotiate, but that is, that's some people's nature to be that way and think that that might work, but in that case, it didn't. The other person that stood out for me was the guy that was in Holly's office doing coke off the desk, and he is just like the typical LA douche canoe. I think probably every actor has probably patterned that type of, character by, because although he wasn't particularly special, he definitely stood out. And when he was sitting there trying to act like him and John were the best of friends to get him to do something, it's like, dude, just shut up. Take another bump and think, because clearly you're not. And that didn't work out for him either. But and the poor reception guy at the beginning, I always hate how they just shoot him straight out the gate. Like, y'all couldn't take him upstairs with everybody else.
Just
Like,
brutal.
why was this death necessary? The first 5 seconds you walked in the building, it made no sense to me for them to do that. And then all the guards were old. Like, they wasn't gonna fight y'all. Like, just lead them upstairs, let them have some hors d'oeuvres before you rain hell on them. Like,
Eggnog and then use them as hostages. Yeah, well, no. Hans, baby, come on. Like, yeah, he's just completely ridiculous. I was laughing so hard when I heard him just, trying to negotiate with Hans. Like, he's he's trying to sell him a used car. It was
exactly. Like, you see, Takagi did not return. So why, like, if he couldn't talk him out of it, what makes you think he will? Like,
I think I know what you're going to give this 1 out of 10, this particular category, because I think there's only one right answer. But I'll ask, 1 out of 10, what do you give characters and performances?
I definitely give him a 10. I think everybody held their own.
As I said, I thought there was only one right answer, and you got it correct. That's right. That's it. Which brings us to visual storytelling. Again, this is a movie much like the last movie that we reviewed, largely takes place in one location. The poster of the movie says 40 stories of sheer adventure, and I didn't count if they hit all 40, but from the basement where Argyle is hanging out, listening to Run DMC, all the way up to the top of the roof where they're jumping off and blowing it up. I mean, they really do utilize every inch and cranny of what was a practical location. They did build some miniatures. The shot towards the end when the helicopter is falling and blown up, that was done with miniatures. But a lot of this, again, was shot on location in and around the Nakatomi Tower. Your last film, which I had said I recently watched, all takes place in one location.
Well, when I wrote it, it wasn't with Die Hard itself in mind, but definitely for, the state filmmaking is in right now, especially for independents that don't have a budget. Like that film you saw, we had 0 budget and we shot that in 1 day. And that was out of necessity. To watch this and know it's one location. Of course, there are other locations within, but to see how the conference area, wherever they were having the party,
Right.
Those spaces looked wide open, although they were confined. But then when you find John and he's creeping through all the different areas, the way they, kept him confined and small, and it worked really, really well to to, see which floor he was jumping to next and how was he gonna hide, because a lot of the building wasn't constructed and, finished, because that building I think is the Fox building, and it was also under construction when they filmed it there. And in Holly's office, when they're talking, that beautiful backdrop is an actual painting they still have with the traffic and the lights and stuff. So that wasn't even real, but it was still done like beautifully. I know it cost like 28 million to make back then, but I think that it was a beautiful contained, especially knowing that I think they originally wanted the movie to go over a 3-day period, but the director was like, no, it needs to be one night. And I think that was the best move that they could have made.
Yeah, I think the film does a really great job visually of it is kind of wider and it opens up and the spaces get more and more confined. And even towards the climax of the film, John is outside and has to kind of come back in through the window. And what a great detail of him having to be barefoot on the,
Right.
the glass. Cause it's hard. I mean,
Glass. I love that line.
when he has to, it's like in any action movie, you have to make things bigger and bigger and bigger because you're always trying to build off the last scene. But what this movie is a great lesson in is that you just have to sort of make things more gritty and maybe more painful. It doesn't always have to be a bigger explosion, but just having a small circumstance of no shoes and everything's covered in glass, that is way more impactful and sort of something the audience can identify with, and maybe not in terms of stepping on something sharp. I mean, hopefully not having terrorists machine gun you down at a Hankins party.
The fact that that tank top went through just as much hell. Oh my God, it was white and it was black and just horrid by the end. I think that was like a theme in the first 3 movies. Like, he just is destroyed by the end. Whilst he's going through all this crap in confinement, we can see out these windows, the world outside just going about its business. And it's like, you want for them to eventually get back out into that.
No, that's such a
I know it's not Christmas. People say, oh, this isn't a Christmas movie. Yes, it is. Santa showed up. His name was John.
That's right, old Saint McLean. I'll ask you then, as you know, I got to get a grade out of you. 1 to 10, visual storytelling. What do you give Die Hard?
Definite 10.
The 10 is locked in. Again, I love the Christmas spirit, the cheer. We've got nothing but 10 so far. That brings us to use of sound. This is obviously a movie from 1988. So this is a movie where ADR was really popular. So there's a few little moments where that kind of stands out. But technically, I mean, obviously a movie that was pretty kind of as good as it gets. There's not too many things that really stand out to me in terms of flaws that, like I said, I don't write off as just being limitations of the technology at the time. When I think of Die Hard and we talk about it being a Christmas movie, it does have a very kind of Christmassy soundtrack. Like, I think that's a big part of it.
I think it definitely serves the role. The first thing that always pops into my mind too with Die Hard and the sound is, first of all, you have Argyle in the garage, a pretty empty garage, blasting Run DMC. How did nobody hear that? How did nobody hear him the entire movie, which always blows my mind. And then you have the chaos, going on in the building. And I think the absence of having some sort of Christmassy type, like, because they could have really been hokey and used sleigh bells or something, because they are not experiencing Christmas cheer right now and jingle bells and all of that stuff. So I think it works. And of course, with the glass, when he says shoot the glass and we get to hear all that crunchy glass and see it sparkling, look so beautiful, like it's, some sort of like jagged snow, to kind of give us the illusion of, okay, that's beautiful, but it's not going to be beautiful for the bottom of his very raw, very unprotected feet. With the use of sound, those are the things that definitely stand out. Of course, the machine guns drive home the horror part of it for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. There are some fun sort of kind of mixes into the because there is a theme. I mean, there is like actual, composed music for it throughout, but there are sort of these kind of little holiday riffs that's sort of just to really light it
Mhm.
in there, and it's just a little bit, and again, it's almost comedic because a lot of times it'll kind of end a scene or kind of punctuate like an action scene. I might as well just ask for the score, 1 out of 10. What would you give Use of Sound?
Use of sound. I guess I could go a 9 because you noticed a couple things, so others might, but I have no qualms with the sound. See, the sound person had what best sound nominee, so something was working.
That's very true. I maybe I put my paw in my mouth. Shout out, that's because this got 4 Oscar nominations. We might as well shout it out now. We've got nominated for best effects and visual effects. We've got best sound effects and sound editing, as well as best film editing, and yes, best sound overall. So, which brings us to themes. Again, we talked about it when we were talking about the plot. This is very much kind of I mean, it is a love story, right? Let's
Hmm.
call it what it is. It's a love story that it starts with a estranged couple, and then they are kind of back together by the end. I only say kind of because again, I've seen the other movies. Spoiler: John apparently can't hold it down at home because he really struggles when it comes to staying married. But at least for the purposes of the story, you have that element to it. There's very much a theme of friendship and camaraderie and just sort of overcoming these circumstances. But I'll just ask, what were maybe some themes that stood out to you? And ultimately, I don't know, what were just your thoughts on the themes of Die Hard?
So yeah, well, so we have I guess I call it separated buddy cop theme between him and Vel because they're like, working together in a way. Uh, um, well, as best as they can. And of course, there's the romance. There's the fantasy part where John, he just wants his family back. The kids want daddy home for Christmas. When I was younger, it was always like, okay, so now they're gonna go home and live happily ever after. So, I get those themes, but like you spoiled, by the time we get to movie number 2, I think they're separated or something. I don't know. It just didn't work out, but those are the themes that for sure stand out the most for me.
And this is a movie that we said it doesn't take itself too seriously, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have an understanding of kind of where it's operating from. I'm not going to pretend like I would ever accuse Die Hard of being this very deep or overly emotional film by any stretch of the imagination, but it does have emotions and I think a very kind of worldly human base to it and grounded in it. I might as well ask. I'm very curious. 1 out of 10. What do you give the themes?
I definitely give the themes, I'm giving it a 9 only because of the terrorists. I, for the love of me, can't think of any, unless the backstories happen in the second movie or the third when the brother comes back. Like the whole reasoning for them doing all of that at the building for the bonds. I know they wanted the bonds and whatnot, but I didn't see a reason or remember an explanation for their theme. Like when Holly says you're nothing but a common thief, and he's like, I'm not common or whatever he says. But that's exactly what it was. Was it just because he wanted to be this common thief and steal some bonds out of the safe? And then why are there bonds there? Like those kinds of things. That's the reason why I'll give that a 9.
That means I've got a total score that I can reveal to you. You gave the plot a 10, the characters and performances a 10, the visual storytelling a 10, the use of sound a 9, and the theme a 9. That's a total of 96, which I'm going to guess A plus. Are we giving here? Just an A, an A plus.
I'd
What's
give it an A plus. I think an A plus is fair. If it was a 95, 94, then just an A. But I think it definitely is an A plus.
Hey, look, it is Christmas. I mean, we gotta come with the cheer. No, I mean, rather you talking Christmas movies, action movies, Bruce Willis movies. Um, Alan Rickman movies. I mean, I feel like Die Hard comes up in a lot of different conversations, and it's always kind of towards the top. Dare I say S tier? So I think A plus is really fair. I wasn't quite as kind. But close, not far behind. I gave the plot to your 10. I gave it a 7, which may sound bad compared to a 10, but I feel like again, it's a good score. It's a positive score. It's a plot that keeps going, and it's fun. And as it unravels, um, but again, it's light. It just kind of it keeps it moving. It's not overly complex, so I gave it a 7. Characters and performances, I gave it a 10 to your 10. Visual storytelling, I gave it a 9.5 to your 10, only because, and maybe I'm being a bit of a Scrooge here, famously in when John comes through the glass and comes through the window, you can kind of see this rubber foot sock that he's wearing. And so I saw that very early on in my Die Hard screening career, and I've never been able to unsee it. So I gotta give the 9.5 only because I saw this number. Oh, anyhow, use of sound to your 9, I gave it an 8, so not really anything to explain, pretty much there. And then themes, I gave it a 7 to your 9. I just honestly gave the themes a 7 to kind of align with the plot. I felt like they were just sort of on the same level to me. Again, a good score, uh, nothing to shake a stick at. But overall, I gave it an 83 to your 96. So I gave it a solid A. Again,
Okay.
not an A plus, but still an A.
That's fair. That's fair.
I do love the movie. I sound like a kind of a bit of a Grinch. I should have revealed my score first, maybe. But
No, no, no. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. It aligns. After I watched this, it reminded me of another of my favorite Christmas movies, and that is The Long Kiss Goodnight. And I was like, why didn't I say that one? Because that is, oh my gosh, that is my jam. But a lot of the same similar themes in that one as well. But no, I can't be mad at your score. That's your score.
well, maybe next year you could come back and we can do the long kiss goodnight for our Christmas special next year. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but you did mention that you are a big fan of Christmas movies. You did tell me in a voice note all the different Christmas movies that you love. But I do want to, for some of the listeners out there who are also big fans of Christmas movies, Lakeisha, maybe you can serve up a couple other of your favorites. Obviously, Die Hard, The Long Kiss Goodnight. Those are two. What are maybe two or three others?
Although I don't like him as much anymore, one I did enjoy a couple years ago was The Fat Man with Mel Gibson. Of course, Home Alone 1, 2, maybe 3.
Okay, some love for Home Alone 3. I love it.
The staples in our house was Die Hard, followed by Long Kiss Goodnight, Home Alone, and like yeah, we were set for bed after that. But yeah,
It's a good stretch.
yeah, those are the faves.
That's a good list, and I feel very fortunate, a true Christmas gift that you came back to the jungle to review another movie with us, and I'm I'm glad that it was a more cheery movie. Again, thematically very, very similar. So it wasn't like too much of a departure. But maybe next time we can pick a movie that doesn't have any terrorists in it. Maybe that'll be a goal the next time you come back. I know your film is doing the festival run right now. Is the plan to then maybe let it live online, or how can people maybe see it?
Yeah, that so once I see if we get into any more festivals, I'm definitely going to put it online. I'm actively working on trying to put it up on like I want to say my own streamer, but it's not gonna have its own app. But I'm gonna put all of my stuff there for people to see. It's called watchember.com.
Okay.
And it's called Ember because my production company is Cinefury Production. So that's just like the little embers coming off the fire. But the Shiny New Things, my first web series, that DVD is available for people who might want to check it out. It's a little pricey, but I'm going back to the old school where owning your physical stuff is going to be very important because I'm tired of licensing stuff that you never really own. But thank you for at least allowing me to talk a little bit about my things. I really appreciate that.
No, absolutely. I want everybody to go check it out. And I'm here for the physical media. Look, guys, we mentioned it actually earlier in this episode. DP Christina Dobre, she was on the show. We were talking Muppets, and we were chatting how a lot of newer movies that come out, they are on DVD. You can buy them on the film's website. Begonia, which is one of my favorite movies of 2025, that has like 5 different DVD versions that's out, and with special features and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, here on Real Talk, we're always pushing the physical media. So yeah, go pick up Lakeisha's DVDs. That's what I'm saying. Thank you for coming. I'll definitely be making the call again, hopefully before Christmas of next year, but at least put a soft hold on coming back for the long kiss goodnight next year for Christmas. And in the meantime, be well, happy holidays, happy New Year.
More than happy to come back. I always love talking movies with you.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to clean up the language a little bit, but I'll end it by saying, yippee-ki-yay, Lakeisha.
Yippee-ki.
Thanks for listening, and here's a look at the scoreboard from our show. John Pollock scored Home Alone a 72 in B to my 64 in B- with an average of 68 and a B. Christina Dobre scored The Muppet's Christmas Carol a 100 and graded it an A+ to my 94 and an A, so we got an average of 97 and an A+, making it the highest scored film on today's show. On the other end of the spectrum, Sid scored Jingle All the Way a 20 and an F+ to my 46 and C-, with a total of 33 and a D. Closing out the show, Lakeisha Jackson scored Die Hard a 96 and an A+ to my 83 and an A, with an average of 89.5 and an A. Please tell me what you graded each film in the comments, as I genuinely want to know. Big thank you to John Pollock of Post Wrestling for reviewing Home Alone with me. I strongly encourage you to follow Christina on all her social platforms. You can support Sid the Cinema Sloth by picking up some of his merch on our show shop. And finally, a huge thank you to writer-director Lakeisha Jackson for returning to grade Die Hard. Join us next time on episode 19, Music Biopics. Musician and podcaster Matthew Hackle debuts to review Walk the Line. Jimmy the Toucan returns to grade The Doors. And my good buddy, director-editor Dominique Smith returns to score 8 Mile. Thanks to the team at Real Digital for producing this episode, and Platinum Plastic, who supplies all our show's merchandise on redbubble.com. If you haven't left a like by now, you might as well, and subscribe to the channel, as well as hit the bell icon to be notified when Real Talk drops every week. Thanks for listening, and if you're going to talk movies, make sure it's Real Talk.
I was always kind of partial to Roy Rogers, actually. I really like those sequin shirts.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.